videos of the kids hiding in their classroom. The shooter was knocking on the door saying, "It's the sheriff. It's safe to come out." And the kids some of them were ready to go to the door. And then he said, "Come on, bro." And that was when they knew that the shooter was right outside their door, that their lives were in danger in that moment, and they started to jump out the window. I watch those images, and I have an 18-year-old. I have a 16-year-old. And when I think about my 16-year-old being in a situation like this where they have tried to have shooter drills, he goes to a school with children. He is severely disabled intellectually and physically. I don't know if you remember the story from Sandy Hook, but one of the children that was murdered was autistic and had a caregiver, and she died trying to protect him. So when these teachers and caregivers are doing these drills, they are not just trying to make sure our kids are safe. They go through it knowing that the chances of them being slaughtered in the event of a shooter are significant. I'm going to take a break here. We're going to talk to Senator Dan Kowowski in just a moment. 773-763-WCPT. When is enough enough? If it wasn't the kids at Sandy Hook, it's not going to be these teenagers in Michigan. I'll be right back after this. You're listening to the Joan Esposito Show, live, local, and progressive. I'm Patti Vasquez, filling in for her.
Amy Goodman reports on the news stories rarely covered by the corporate media.
In Chile, security forces shot dead 2 indigenous Mapuche leaders during clashes in the province of Arauco. The southern coastal region has been under a state of emergency, with the Chilean government deploying 2,000 soldiers to the region as it attempts to suppress the Mapuche community in their fight to recover their ancestral lands.
Democracy Now!, weekday evenings at 11 on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey Chicago, it's Tom Hartman here. Who doesn't love a great roof? I know my friends at Roofers and Waterproofers Local 11 sure do, and I'm proud to introduce them as the local sponsor of the Tom Hartman program in Chicago. I can't imagine anything more important to any building than a roof, and union-built roofs are built to last. Listen to my show weekdays 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, sponsored by Roofers Local 11.
We've all been spending more time indoors than usual, but FinishingChicago.com has an offer to update your interior. Whether your space is residential or commercial, for a limited time you can save up to 25% on painting and decorating. FinishingChicago.com has the most dynamic interior spaces available from industry-leading union craftspeople. That's union quality, efficiency, and industry-leading expertise in your home or commercial space. Visit FinishingChicago.com to find a contractor in your area. This unprecedented access to union quality labor at a reduced rate is only available for a limited time. Revitalize your spaces with fine decorative upgrades applied by the most knowledgeable craftspeople in the industry. Whether it's a new color or transforming your walls into something truly special, our contractors have all the options. Take advantage of FinishingChicago.com's Update Your Interior savings before they're gone. For up to 25% off your new finish, start with FinishingChicago.com.
Hi, this is Jason Bissell from Chicago Community Acupuncture at Milwaukee, Devon, and Nagel in Chicago. The first thing the National Institutes of Health concluded acupuncture could actually treat was chemotherapy-induced nausea. This is back in 1997. Since then, research has shown that it can reduce or eliminate all of the side effects of chemo and radiation: fatigue, neuropathy, pain, dry mouth, and most importantly, impairment to the immune system. It should absolutely be a part of everyone's cancer care regimen. All the top hospitals use it, including Memorial Sloan Kettering, where I was the first acupuncturist to serve as a postdoctoral fellow. If you're battling cancer, we can help. People who get acupuncture along with standard care have fewer side effects, greater quality of life, greater survival times, and greater survival rates. And at Chicago Community Acupuncture, we charge about half of what others charge. Call us at 773-853-0920, 773-853-0920, or go to ChiComAcu.com, ChiComacu.com.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist, Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the Joan Esposito Show, live, local, and progressive. This is Patti Vasquez sitting in for her today on a very busy news day, a very important day to have these conversations, especially if you're watching nonstop coverage of everything going on. And that's why I wanted to have Senator Dan Kowowski joining us again. We had him on Monday to talk about Kids Above All. He's the president and CEO of Kids Above All, which is a nonprofit dedicated to building better lives for children and families so they can reach their full potential. He's also a former state senator, and he has also been the executive director of the Illinois Council Against Handgun Violence. Senator, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. I know that you are so passionate about this. We need to have stronger conversations when it comes to protecting our kids. What were your thoughts yesterday as this story was unfolding out of Michigan?
Well, I mean, sort of like the same feeling I have every day. And it's about the number of kids who are being killed in the city of Chicago. I mean, we've had more kids die from gun violence in Chicago than COVID, and nationwide. So the number of kids under the age of 17 who died of gun violence in Chicago have exceeded the number of kids under the age of 18 who've died of COVID. And so this horrific pandemic is not as dangerous to children as gun violence is to children in Chicago and nationwide. The reality is, it makes me think about how we've done such a great job in our country of protecting the rights and the freedoms of people to protect their life, their property, their family with firearms, and we've done little to protect the life, the liberty, and freedom of children who are basically seeking the simple opportunity to achieve an education and to pursue that happiness and achieve that level of liberty so they can have the best life possible. I mean, there's a steady stream of kids who've been victims of gun violence in our country. And so it's just, I mean, the big struggle that I have, and I've had this for decades, there are so many people who you would think the people out there that were advocating for the most reasonable measures to minimize damage caused by exceedingly dangerous firearms, you would think that they would be as concerned about the freedoms, the liberties, the protections, the safety of children. And we're talking little children, teenagers, young adults. But that's the challenge that we have right now. And so, what would you do to minimize? And often the discussion is well, look, I mean, what would it mean if you reduced the size of the ammunition capacity of these guns the gun that was used in the school shooting was 15 round magazines, and there was 8, I think, bullets remaining in the chamber. And so we were advocating for years to reduce the size of ammunition magazines from 15 rounds to 10 rounds. I mean, just to minimize the damage. But because I think there are so many guns that have been purchased, so many guns that are in people's possession. As you saw, this father bought the gun on Black Friday, and then his son got access to it. I just think that, we need to start having this conversation about kids. And that's why at Kids Above All, we talk about placing the safety, well-being, and education of kids above everything else. And we're failing right now, and have been for some time in our country. And we have to figure out a way to step up and stand up for kids and make sure we protect their freedoms, their rights, their securities. Because we literally, the folks on the other side will say, well, we're not doing enough to make sure we protect them. There is no problem with people getting access to guns in this country. It's a myth. It's a myth.
Yeah.
There's a problem. They're able to get access to exceedingly powerful weaponry. I mean, a child, a 17-year-old, get access to an AR-15 and go to a protest, and then show up with a military-style assault rifle. That to me, there's not a problem with people getting access to guns. And right now we have people who are creating guns without serial numbers and ghost guns. And never do you find ever in the conversation about guns, it's like you talk about this incident happened, and they talk about the weapon. They don't talk about who made it. this recent web, who made it, where it was sold. They often they kind of glance over that, right?
Right.
But like, there's a manufacturer that makes these guns. There's manufacturers that make guns, who make the AR-15, who make the Sig Sauer weapon that was used yesterday. I believe it's based in New Hampshire, right? There's a place where these guns are made. They're not just made and manufactured. It's not created out of some kind of fairy dust. There are people who create weapons, sell weapons, make billions of dollars in the distribution of weapons. The people that people would say, "Listen, I want a gun. I want to go hunting. I want to defend my family or my property." And this isn't a debate about that really anymore.
No.
Is it?
No.
It's more a debate about because people can get access to it. They can get concealed handguns. They can get firearms. They can go hunting. No, there has been no sort of minimization of access in our country. So that's a dog that won't hunt, right?
Right.
The discussion really is about okay, now that we know and we recognize the lay of the land here, what are we sincerely doing to make sure that we are going to protect our children? We're going to protect their safety, their security, their rights, their liberties, so they can actually grow up and achieve the American dream. How many times do we have to say this? Stories. How many times is this going to exist in our country where these mass shootings occur? Oh my God, we have thoughts and prayers for the families. We should talk about mental health and
right.
I was just well, yeah, but it's never really anything that's they try to make this. We don't have massive school knifings, right? We don't have school knifings. They don't exist, right?
Right.
There may be one-offs, but we don't have situations where people come in and that type of crime is committed, right? So we have a school shooting problem. We have a daily violence problem committed against kids, and there's the value of life that sadly the rights and freedoms of some people have superseded the rights and freedoms of children. The fact is, the vast majority of people who own firearms and possess firearms are law-abiding, decent people, right? And that's the vast majority of them. But we're talking about, and most of them support reasonable measures to keep children safe, right? But the fact is, oftentimes in our country, our policies our attempt to pass basic reforms, public safety, public freedom, public security reforms are hijacked by a very small number of people who possess a lot of money and a great fear. But I just wanted to lay it out there, because if you're listening and there is a notion that's being propagated out there, someone says, I can't really it's been so hard for me to get access to a military-style assault rifle.
Yeah.
Not true.
No.
It's not true. It's hard for me to get access to a gun that has increased firepower.
It should be hard.
Yeah, I know, but they're saying it's it's hard. I can't do this, and that's not true. None of that is true. And if you look on the internet, you could search for guns that are available or guns that are being sold. The reality is, are we stopping? Are we moving heaven and earth to make sure we can protect our kids from people who shouldn't have access to guns? Now, Illinois has been one of the leaders in terms of stepping up and restrictions on, common sense restrictions on people who are selling guns, and making sure that we're requiring more thorough background checks, right? And making sure that we're addressing. But there's so much more that can be done. But the fact is, I think people who are paying attention and who are watching this and watching this tape that's on repeat, that plays periodically. It's I've seen this same movie, right? I've seen it occur over and over again, and yet nothing really happens. And so I really, when I was in the Senate, I thought, the whole world, thought that the United States of America would step up and stand up for kids when
right.
Little 5-year-olds were having their faces shot off by an AR-15 in a school. I think they thought that we would basically wake up and take a strong position and move forward and doing something that's reasonable. Because the fact is, it's got to be an issue that you talk about with your elected officials. It's got to be a conversation that people have. Like, what are you doing to protect kids?
I have
and it's not good enough. It's not good. I would say it's not good enough for people to say, like, well, I have to worry about all the gun owners in my district. Yeah. We've already taken care of them.
Right.
They're already taken care of. They're fine.
Tell them what you've accomplished.
What are we doing?
Right. Tell them what you've accomplished for their rights and now what you're going to do for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a real simple thing. It's like, yeah, we've done what we've needed to do to protect your freedoms. You can get a gun. You can carry a gun. You can get a gun to protect your property. You can get a gun to go hunting. No one's stopping you from doing that, right? In fact, it should be the conversation like, well, why are people getting access to, weapons at a high-capacity ammunition magazines? Why is that? Why does that occur? There is a militarization that existed for the civilian market. It's happened over the past several decades, where basically the gun industry gets it. They basically lethality. Is the nicotine of the gun industry.
Yes.
Right? The more lethal, the sexier that people get. Like, why? You're like, wow, how did this kid get access to this gun? Well, they've been for sale and promoting it, and it's in all these different areas. They do a wonderful job marketing, but this is an industry people make a tremendous amount of money.
Yep.
But the more dangerous, the more lethal, the more military-like, the more it's able to appeal to people in that way. It's like video games, right? People like the more and more. Well, this isn't interesting enough for me. It needs to be wilder. I need to be able to do this and that. More technology. Look, we have the technology if we wanted. We have the technology to make these guns exceedingly lethal. More lethal. I know it sounds a little bit redundant because they're designed to be lethal, but it's more lethal than they can be. We have the technology to make them safer. We have the technology to make sure only the authorized user of the gun can fire it. I mean, if this child gets access to a gun to commit a crime, a mass crime, right? He got the gun from his father. You should have fingerprint recognition software on that gun. I don't know why.
I know. It's crazy. Senator, I have to run to the news, and I'd love to have you in studio when time allows, because we always end up having these conversations in the wake of a tragedy, and we need to keep having these conversations so that it is forefront in people's minds to keep kids safe. I appreciate your time today, sir.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
You too. Again, that was Senator Dan Kowowski, for the president and CEO of Kids Above All. More after this. We're going to check in with Alex Papadopoulos. It's going to be one of those things where I have to slow down in order to pay full respect to someone's name. Coming up after the break, we are going to have with us Alex Papadopoulos from EGEA, the place to go for green, socially responsible investing. More in a moment.
Why is this oven still going? Hi, this is Dinesh.
Dinesh's bakery just landed a sweet catering contract.
40 dozen fritters? Friday at 5 a.m.?
He needs an event planner to help him rise to the occasion.
Oh, every Friday at 5 a.m. Not a problem.
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Instant Match instantly connects you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
I'm Dr. Baker, an ER physician. If you're having leg pain, swelling, or redness, but haven't talked to your doctor yet, don't wait. This could be deep vein thrombosis, a blood clot which could travel to your lungs and lead to a pulmonary embolism, which could cause chest pain or discomfort or difficulty breathing and be deadly. Your symptoms could mean something serious, so don't wait. Talk to a doctor right away, by phone, online, or in person.
Brought to you by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago traffic update.
Slowing northbound on the Tri-State from right around 115th to the 83rd Street Toll Plaza. That's because they have an earlier stall in the area. Also slow north of there on the ramp to outbound 290. Southbound is okay, as is the Adams-Reagan Memorial, Veterans Memorial Route 53, and the 390 tollway. Eden's inbound and outbound taking 16 between Lake Cook and the Kennedy 28 in from O'Hare. Outbound side taking you just about a minute more. Rollover crash cleanup continuing to block the right right lane out near the 190 ramp, slowing you back to Canfield. DeSable Lakeshore Drive has delays southbound from the Oak Street curve to Chicago, again from Monroe to Buckingham Fountain, northbound from Roosevelt to Monroe. That's traffic. I'm Kevin Henry.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT Willow Springs is powered by ComEd. Lower your energy bills and reduce your carbon footprint with the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program. This is Joan Esposito, and here at WCPT, we love pets. So much that we're spotlighting an adoptable, adorable dog or cat every month. So many deserving pets are waiting for their forever home. We've partnered with community shelters and our sponsors, Love for Dogs Pet Grooming and Mark Drugs, to talk about why rescue is best. It's all on Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. See our current adoptable at WCPT820.com.
That is something completely different. Local all of you, and progressive. Stop what you're doing and let this performer know.
Sorry, everyone. Hey, do I need to do the news? Is that the other button? No, I'm good. Are we good to go? Lady B, I hit all the buttons at the same time. She's like, what did you just do to all my buttons? This is Patti Vasquez sitting in for Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Joan will be back tomorrow, and I want to welcome Joan's regular guest. This segment of Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive is brought to you by EGEA Sri, the place to go for green, socially responsible investing. And here with us is Alex Papadopoulos. Hi, Alex. How are you doing today?
Hey, Patty, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. I have to be honest with you. I am one of those people that gets a lot of anxiety when it comes to talking about investing. People have regret about what they haven't done, what they should have done. And I'm so glad to talk to somebody who is going to talk to us about ways in which you can responsibly not just manage your money, but also invest in companies that will be better for everyone in general. Tell us a little bit about the work that you do.
Sure. Well, look, I've been a financial advisor for 20 years now, so I've been helping people invest in all different stages of their lives, whether they're just starting out, whether they're just had children and are saving for college, and also if they're in retirement or just about to be in retirement. And over the last 5 years, we've really seen a rise in demand for ESG investing, and so that is a focus on what we would call green investing. There's other different names for it, but ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. So when we are investing in ESG funds, those are the key words that we're looking for in terms of what kinds of investments we want to use.
What has changed? Has it improved? Because I think that when I was in my 20s, I encouraged my mom to invest in a company that was developing new technology to treat endometriosis. I was working in corporate communications and was aware that, it was very hard to get investors involved in women's health because, quite frankly, when I would get on the phone with them, their response was, it's icky, that kind of thing. And women's health lags behind in research and funding and things like that. So I always try to be aware of that. But at the same time, it's like this balance. In the last 5 years, it seems as though there has been a sense of urgency. Is that accurate? A sense of urgency in doing better in how we invest in the companies out there?
Yes. So there's multiple things that have all come together to really help this grow for us. And so there's always been a group of people that have focused on ESG. And so one of the issues with ESG is social. And when we talk about social issues, there is a lack of investing in women's issues, whether it be for medical reasons, whether it be for corporate issues. I mean, how many women CEOs are there compared to men? So there's a lot of inadequacies when it comes to women in investing and researching for women. And so the other thing that's happened is green companies, environmentally friendly companies, are actually making a lot of money these days. They're highly, highly successful. And so we can go into a lot of different reasons as to why they're profitable, but the main thing to understand is the price of solar panels, wind, other ways that we can get energy from the environment that are socially acceptable, that are not adding to our big problem in the environment, those types of energies are much cheaper now than fossil fuels. And so we've seen this critical mass where now green energy is cheaper than fossil fuel energy. And this has happened here in the last 5 years. And so that's really the crux of this is free markets kind of do their own thing. And if it's cheaper to have green energy, you're going to see movement towards that. You're going to see investment towards that. And to be honest, this is something that should have happened 10, 15, 20 years ago. There's been a lot of things in place that have slowed this process down, but we're here now. Right. The other big thing is that demand. There's, women now are in control of their finances more than ever. Even when they're married, a lot of women are in control of finances, and there is a lot of demand for these types of investments. So a number of different things have come together.
And including, I know you sent over some, you were talking about investing in green energy, and I'm reading this article you sent me about corporate green bond issuance. And so how much of an effect does that have on the appeal of these companies, of investing in these, to have these bond issuances?
Yeah, so we're really excited about what we're seeing in terms of the corporate bond issuances in green investing, and so we're seeing record numbers of bond issuances from S&P 500 companies. So companies that really can make a difference in how they invest, and so this last year, just to give you some numbers so that we're on the same page, U.S. companies raised $47 billion in green bonds through October of this year. So that's 30% more than last year. And these are big companies like Walmart, Equinox, Micron Technology. These are all S&P 500 companies that are issuing bonds, and those bonds are used for different kinds of social issues. They're used for green buildings, so that the buildings that the companies are in are going to be more efficient, and they're also used to reinvest in the communities that they're in. And so we've been pushing for this for a long time, and finally now you're seeing money actually being used for these items. So it's great. It's an exciting time.
And how much is that in relation to, as you just mentioned, having to meet standards, regulations, legislation, because we can't legislate morality, but we can certainly put up guardrails and have, folks meet those standards, right?
Yes, and that really comes down to consumer demand. And so you look at a company like Walmart, they have a title for somebody that's called the Chief Sustainability Officer of Walmart. And so why would Walmart do this when 5 to 10 years ago we would never see something like this? And so you're seeing demand from the people that work at Walmart, you're seeing demand from the people that shop at Walmart, and also you're seeing demand from the people that invest in Walmart. So all of these things are pushing these large companies to finally do the right thing.
Right, because we've talked before about how Walmart employees, or a lot of companies that pay, minimum wage that isn't really a living wage. A lot of their employees end up having to have food stamps or supplemental income, so they ultimately are being subsidized by the government. So it does seem like there needs to be a better balance there, doesn't there?
It does, and so it's one thing to have a chief sustainability officer. It's good that they're saying all the right things. It's good that they're starting to do the right things. But we, as consumers, need to make sure that they're following through.
Yes.
That they're paying people a living wage, and we need to keep the pressure on. And so, one of the ways we can do that is if you have IRAs, investment accounts, you can make sure that you're invested in ESG funds that will hold these large companies' feet to the fire to make sure they're doing the right things that they say they're doing, and this is a way to make sure that they actually do it.
And how can people make sure that they are investing, and remind people what ESG funds stands for?
Sure. So if you Google ESG, environmental, social, and governance. Okay, those are going to be the three pillars of socially conscious investing. So, environmental, we want to make sure companies are not polluting, that they're taking care of the environment, that they're doing the right things. Social issues, pay people a living wage, make sure that they have diversity on their boards, in their workforce. Governance, we want to make sure that the executive boards of these large companies are diverse and that they're doing the right thing. So one of the things that we talked about with Joan a while back was ExxonMobil. We were able to get two activist people on the board of ExxonMobil. And so that was something that would have never happened 5 and 10 years ago, and now that it happened. And so that's the governance part of ESG. And so if you have Roth IRAs, traditional IRAs, investment accounts, you want to make sure you're invested in ESG funds.
And to do that, I would think we turn to someone like you and go, "Hey, am I balanced here? Do I have ESG funds?" Which I've read are really either can match the performance of non-ESGs or sometimes are outperforming them. So we really do need to pay attention to these.
Yeah, all of the studies here in the last 15 years show that sustainable investing has kept pace with companies that are not what we would consider ESG funds. They've kept pace with those, and in some places have outperformed them. And when it comes to this kind of investing, it's a little bit like doing your taxes. So some people prefer to do it themselves.
That sounds stressful. Go ahead.
Right. So some people, though, they're comfortable with doing their taxes or comfortable with doing their investments. You can go online. There's tons of ESG investments out there that you could get involved in. If you go to the big boys like Vanguard and companies like that, you can do it yourself. For people that need help or are looking for some advice, there are financial advisors like me. I have the designation of a chartered SRI counselor, and that was issued by the College of Financial Planning. There are many advisors like me in the country. Well, there's not that many. The numbers are growing. But you want to talk to somebody that has a designation in socially responsible investing. And so you could do it yourself. You can get help. There's a lot of different ways to get this done. But if it's something you believe in, money talks, unfortunately. And so this is a good way and the best way that we can push companies to do the right thing.
And that's an important thing to remember, is that we can have some impact on how how this unfolds, how whether we have women or people of color on boards, or whether we're moving in the right direction when it comes to the climate. We want to make sure that our future for not only ourselves but our kids is preserved, and one way to do that is to invest. And I will let folks know what your website is so they can learn more about the work that you do.
Sure. So our website is EGEA SRI. If you Google that, we'll come up. And so everything you need to know about us, you'll see on that website. We have an email. We have our phone numbers to give us a call. And, we'd be happy to help people and point them in the right direction as far as environmentally, socially correct investing. People are doing this, Patty. If you look at the food we eat, we want to try to eat organic food as best we can. We try to eat locally sourced foods. We try to help small companies here, shop local. All of these things, people are doing it regardless of your political affiliation. You're seeing that grow, and then the next logical step is to do the same thing with your investments.
Again, we are talking to Alex Papadopoulos. Am I saying your name correctly? I hate when I might not be paying respect to someone's.
That was perfect.
I appreciate it. Again, this segment of Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, is brought to you by EGEA. Am I saying this right? EGEA SRI?
EGEA SRI.
SRI. EGEA SRI, the place to go for green, socially responsible investing. And we're going to continue our conversation. If anybody, do you mind taking calls if people have questions about their investing in ESGs? 773-763-WCPT. That's 773-763-9278. We'll be right back with Alex Papadopoulos on the Joan Esposito Show, live, local, and progressive. I'm Patti Vasquez filling in today, and Joan will be back tomorrow. More after this.
This is Gary Menzel from Roofers and Waterproofers Local 11. Are you happy with your job, or are you looking for a new and exciting career? Wouldn't you like to get up early every morning and head into work so that you could be home early to take your kids to baseball, basketball, or gymnastics practice? Consider a career with us. We're professionally skilled roofers and waterproofers, OSHA trained for on-the-job safety, and our union is growing. Construction remains strong in Illinois and Wisconsin, where we just recently opened a brand new apprenticeship training center near Madison. Union roofers and waterproofers work outside in the fresh air every day, and we get paid well for the hard work we do. We have family health care and a pension plan that you'll be glad you have when you're planning your retirement someday. We want you to earn a living wage and learn to work safely. So if you're ready to join Roofers and Waterproofers Local 11, give us a call, 708-345-0970, and learn more about us at rooferslocal11.org.
Finding the right Medicare plan may feel impossible, but now it's anything but. With Walgreens Find RX coverage tool, you can compare plans online, over the phone, or in person, making Medicare easier than ever. Easier than picking which true crime doc to watch, figuring out that Wi-Fi password, or putting the duvet cover back on. So if you can do those things, with Find RX coverage, you can definitely Medicare. Find the plan that's right for you by visiting walgreens.com/Medicare.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist, Patti Vasquez.
Joan will be back tomorrow. I'm Patti Vasquez, and we are on with Alex Papadopoulos of EGEA SRI, the place to go for green, socially responsible investing. And I was telling Alex I wanted to learn a little bit more about how we invest responsibly and how we grow our income, and to make sure that we protect not only our future through retirement or paying for our kids' college, paying off our homes, or owning a home, whatever you want to achieve. There is a way to also do that responsibly when it comes to our environment, our government, what the future looks like. There's something on my mind, Alex, that I remember a comedian. There's a woman named April Macy who was talking about the disparity between how much property women own compared to men, and it was an extraordinary number. But is there a way to also do ESGs when it comes to real estate? Because a lot of folks want to know about real estate as well.
Yeah, so you can invest in environmentally friendly real estate. There's a lot of different options that we have available for people to invest in. And so if that's something that you're interested in, yeah, we definitely can do that. And what they focus on are properties, different kinds of real estate investment trusts that are going to be sustainable and that are promoting all of the things that we're looking for with ESG. So yes, that's definitely an option. However, when it comes to your retirement account and investment account, we have a saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And so we would want to invest appropriately. We wouldn't want to put too much money into real estate. Generally, it's been a great investment, but you want to stay diversified. That's the key to growing money long term, is to put money in a lot of different places and rebalance that, and that's what we'll do for you if you want. And so real estate's always good.
We are talking again about socially responsible investing with Alex Papadopoulos, and it's not something I mentioned earlier. It's not new. I talked a little bit about how women's health lags behind in research and funding, and I contend that's because men continue to be in power politically and financially, and there's no intellectual access to what women go through. I don't know why I had to put my breast in a panini maker, but that's neither here nor there. It's one of those things. I mean, maybe if we tested for testicular cancer the same way we did mammograms, it would be more accessible. Yes, I know that it doesn't sound. It's well, I'm just saying. But that's the thing, is that we haven't been as involved. And I do have a listener. Bridget asks, would you recommend a financial app like Acorn?
Yes, Acorn's great. They do have ESG funds available within Acorn, and so yeah, that would be a great option for. Typically, that's for people starting out, and they tend to. It's a do-it-yourself type of an app, which is perfectly fine. But yes, they do offer ESG funds within Acorn. So yeah, I would be fine with that.
Right. And for when folks visit your website, I mean, you give a good breakdown of what it means to invest socially responsibly. And, again, it breaks down environmental, social, and governance, which is the ESGs. I have to ask, the Aegean Sea what's the EGEA come from?
Yeah, great question. So EGEA is the Greek word for health.
Oh.
So when we were thinking about a name for this new company here, and so, health of the planet and health of society, I think, go hand in hand, and that's how we came up with that name.
Oh, I love that. I love that I asked that question, because I've been like, oh, that's a unique name. I'm not sure, and that's a lovely reason. What got you involved in wanting to invest responsibly for the future of the planet?
Sure. Well, obviously, this is something that I've always believed in. But 20 years ago, when I started, I had a local neighborhood office, a storefront office in Evanston, Illinois. It was on basically on the campus of Northwestern, and I was much younger back then, obviously. And we'd have people that would come in and ask for green stocks and green portfolios. And so quickly, I had to learn as much as I could about the subject, and I've become an expert because I've kept those clients over the last 20 years. And 20 years ago, when people were investing in green funds, they knew that they were not going to keep up with the large indexes, but it was something that they believed in. They felt that it was the right thing to do. They felt very strongly about that. And so that's when I first started all of this. And it's just so exciting to see here in the last 5 years that those same people are doing just as good as anybody else, and sometimes better. And now we're getting an overwhelming amount of people coming in and asking for these types of investments. So it's amazing to see how quickly things can change. If you think about 10 years ago, was it 10 years ago, Patty, where people could smoke in restaurants, and it was just okay. And now, now if that happened, it was just something that you would never see. So things can change, and they change pretty quickly. And so it's an exciting time when it comes to green investing. We want to get this Build Back Better plan here by the end of the year. There's a lot of wonderful things in that. Hopefully, we'll get a few of those senators that are disagreeing to jump on board, and we can get it in before Christmas. That would be really exciting and really good for the planet if that could happen.
How much do you have, how many screens do you have going all day long? You always think of investors like they've got the financial news on, they've got DC news on. How much of that is involved in pacing yourself emotionally too?
Sure. So, we got a number of screens up. I mean, something that we're really monitoring here now that could affect the market this week is the continuing the revenue resolution that expires on Friday. And so hopefully we do not get a government shutdown. That's going to be really key. It is interesting that this generally happens when Democrats are in power. But that's something that if they don't come to an agreement here by Friday, you could see the market go down. It would be temporary because I can't imagine that they would allow that to continue for a very long time. But we've seen government shutdowns in the past, so that's something that we look at on a short-term basis. But the truth is, on a long-term basis, if you invest correctly in large indexes and you stay invested, even when things go bad, you have the best possibility of growing your assets. So it's people that get in and out quite often end up losing when it comes to investing. So the key is to stay invested and to be invested in good, solid investments. And so those are the pillars of long-term growth.
Well, and the key is to get in. It's not you can't win it, if you don't play. But the key is to get. I mean, it took me a long time. For me, it was the biggest leap for me was I had an employer that had the matching, or had a certain amount, and that helps people. But I wish. I mean, I don't like to use the word regret, but I wish that I had listened to people like in my 20s. You should put at least 10 to 20% of your income, and now I'm playing a little bit of catch up. But people like me who are 50. Shouldn't be looking down it's the second half of my life. There's still time. We have this idea of like, well, it's too late for me now. Can you talk a little bit about that anxiety for folks?
Sure. Well, look, it's never too late. Ideally, you want to start as soon as you can, and you can start off with a small amount. It doesn't have to be a big amount. But, the first payment that you make has to be to yourself. Before you pay any other bills, before you go shopping or do anything like that, payment number one has to be towards your retirement and savings. And so that number is going to be different for everybody else, but you have to start there. And then you want to make sure that whatever that amount is, you want to make sure you're investing that and investing it correctly, because the banks right now, checking, savings, CDs are just not paying much, as we know. So you want to make sure it's invested. And regardless of age, it's never too late to start your nest egg. And so everyone's in a different situation, but the sooner that you can start, the better.
Yes, I agree with that completely. And again, we've been talking to Alex Papadopoulos, who is the president and a chartered SRI counselor with EGEA SRI. And I have to tell you that I'm trying to encourage my son. I want him to have better habits, even if it's for him at 18, putting $10 a week or whatever into something. And you mentioned Acorn. I know there are a lot of apps out there. So, I mean, for kids, it's almost as though it should be easy for us to imbue our failures or wisdom upon them and say, hey, don't do what I did. Take your phone, gamify it if you have to, but start putting money away.
Agreed. Yeah. I'm sure when you and I, when we were 18, I don't know if it was as easy to do these kinds of things, but now for young kids, they're just whizzes on their apps, on their phones, and so if we can get them to do that they're going to thank us down the road, definitely.
Well, I appreciate your time. By the way, I already filled out a form and sent it to you for why I want to invest. Retirement and leave the planet a better place, in case you see that under a different name. Like, oh, that is Pat. She really did do that. Alex, excellent. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to more conversations that you have with Joan. Again, this segment of Joan Esposito Live, Local, and Progressive was brought to you by EGEA SRI, the place to go for green, socially responsible investing. And we've been talking to the president of EGEA SRI, Alex Papadopoulos. Have a great rest of your day and happy holidays.
Thanks, Patty. Same to you.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Patti Vasquez.
We have Congressman Raja with us. This exchange has gone viral. You have over 1 million views on our TikTok.
So I basically asked the question, if God forbid your daughter were raped and became pregnant, would you force her to carry the fetus to term?
And her reaction was, I'm working to live in a world where making decisions about abortion are necessary. And it's so maddening because they don't.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez. Weeknights from 5 to 6 p.m. on WCPT 820.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
It's Dell Technologies' biggest business sale of the year with Cyber Monday deals on Windows 11 PCs. Call 877-ASK-DELL. Dell Technologies recommends Windows 11 Pro for business.
AP News, I'm Tim McGuire. The first case of the Omicron variant of the coronavirus has emerged in the U.S.
We knew that it was just a matter of time.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says a person in California who traveled from South Africa late last month tested positive last week.
The individual was fully vaccinated and experienced mild symptoms, which are improving at this point.
Fauci says it's unclear if the person had received a booster shot, but he's urging all Americans to get one or get vaccinated if they haven't received any shots. His remarks came not long after President Biden again urged Americans not to panic about the variant as scientists learn more about its strength.
Am I concerned? Of course I am, until we get the final answers.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
15-year-old Ethan Kremley, a sophomore at Oxford High School near Detroit, is charged with murder, terrorism, and other counts for a shooting that killed 4 fellow students and injured others at the school. Oakland County, Michigan prosecutor Carrie McDonald on why Kremley is charged as an adult.
There are crimes that the legislature has said are so serious that a person who commits them can automatically be charged as an adult. First-degree murder is the most serious of all those crimes. Second, there are facts leading up in the shooting that suggest this was not just an impulsive act.
Charges were announced just a few hours after authorities reported the death of a 4th teen from the school. The Supreme Court conservative majority seems to be leaning to uphold Mississippi's 15-week ban on abortions and may go much farther to overturn the nationwide right to abortion that has existed for nearly 50 years. The Mississippi law, which bans abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, is a direct challenge to the viability precedent in Roe v. Wade and its follow-up ruling, Planned Parenthood v. Casey. A decision is expected by the end of June. This is AP News. U.S. manufacturing posts strong gains as companies scramble to cover increasing demand. Ben Thomas has this.
The Institute for Supply Management's latest gauge shows manufacturing activity grew at an even faster pace in November. As companies try to keep up with demand amid ongoing supply shortages and delays, the ISM index rose to 61.1. Any reading above 50 indicates growth. New orders, production, and employment all picked up, though many respondents noted they're still struggling to hire. Elevated demand also has companies struggling to keep their inventories stocked. That reading was at 25.1. The manufacturing sector has recorded 18 straight months of growth. I'm Ben Thomas.
After a strong start, the markets are sluggish, with the Dow up by more than 400 points early, is just 75 points ahead heading into the final hour of trading. NASDAQ is waffling between small losses and gains. S&P 500 is up 23. I'm Tim McGuire, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic update.
Metra's UP North Line train due into Winnetka 254 running 25 minutes late with track construction. Kennedy outbound clogged Canfield to the 190 with earlier crash now cleared. 10 to the split, 7 in the express, 29 to O'Hare. Inbound from the airport, it's a half hour. 20 of that in from the junction. Eisenhower either way. 39 minutes between the Circle and 390. Outbound slowing from Damon to 25th Avenue. Now the outbound Stevenson. Stop and go from Ashland to Central. From DuSable Lakeshore Drive on out to the Tri-State 29, 36 minutes out to 355. The Dan Ryan outbound, that's bumper to bumper from 51st on out to the split. From the Circle out to 95th and 23. That's traffic. I'm Mary DeBadges.
Remember when you get to work to hop over to WCPT820.com or the TuneIn Radio app and stream The Stephanie Miller Show. Weekdays 8 to 11 a.m. on Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist, Patti Vasquez.
This is Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820 AM, and I also hope that you're following our news team, Heartland Signal, on Twitter at Heartland Signal, and we'll talk about some of the stories coming up at 5 o'clock with comedian Bill Gorga, who's joining me in studio. Joining me on the line right now is the co-founder and executive director of Social Change. Todd Belcourt joins us. I know you're traveling, so thank you for your time. Todd, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the opportunity to be here with you, Patti.
Absolutely. Well, you're not here with me because you told me yesterday you were taking off somewhere. Where in the world are you this afternoon?
You know, I'm in Los Angeles. I have a speaking engagement here, and then we're going to the AIDS Healthcare Foundation kind of AIDS Around the World gala later this evening.
Tell us the importance of International AIDS Day. Because I think that we've kind of it comes up in cultural references rather than it being still an emergency that people need to be aware of what people are going through in other parts of the world as well.
That's right. I think at the end of the day, people don't realize the way in which AIDS is still an epidemic that requires real serious attention. And while there have been breakthroughs medically and in terms of access to the healthcare to really remediate some of the life-changing costs associated with contracting it, it's important to make sure people are still aware, and especially in this COVID era, just anything we can do to make sure people are continuing to be vigilant relating to their health. We just want to be involved in encouraging and be in the front lines of doing our part to spread the word.
And the organizations that you work with, in addition to working with folks and acknowledging and observing World AIDS Day, you've also been very active in making sure, in a similar way, people know that they have access to vaccinations. And I know that this story just broke in the last couple hours that the first case of the Omicron variant is in California. It was a traveler from South Africa, late November. We knew that it was not a matter of if, but when, once this variant was identified and elevated to a level of concern by the World Health Organization. How are folks, when it comes to getting vaccinated, are you still seeing, the same people, whatever their hesitancy was before or why it's taken them so long? How has that outreach been going?
Vaccine hesitancy is a real thing for people.
Yeah, you have a little bit of an echo. You have a bit of an echo, don't you, when you talk? Are you hearing that?
Yeah, I'm trying to. Hopefully that's resolved there. What we're seeing is just on the ground, going door to door in different communities across the nation. People's deep distrust of the medical profession is just so ingrained, and it requires kind of the credible messengers, the people who are already embedded in the community, kind of the neighbor-to-neighbor outreach to overcome that, to kind of create other levers to encourage people to get this life-saving opportunity. I mean, at the end of the day, we're not going to ignore the fact that there have been abuses that have taken place as a result of people's engagement with the medical profession, and harm has been caused. What we do know, whether it be Omicron or anything that may come, is a variant that hasn't even been formulated quite yet, that we do need to do something to make sure people who need access to the vaccine, who need access to healthcare, get it and get access that's quality. So we're doing our part to stand in the gap to provide that true bridge between community and healthcare, and so far so good. Of over 1,000 people who were hesitant previously have gotten vaccinated as a result. But at the same time, we're also making sure people have healthy food and other things to make sure, whether they're vaccinated or not, that they have everything they need to have kind of the healthy life that we know decreases some of these ailments, whether it be the likelihood of contracting something like COVID or something more significant over the lifeline, like a diabetes or something like that.
One of the things that I've been trying to tackle in the last few months in the work that I do is making sure that people have information of resources. And when I've worked with you on food, whether it's distributing food or masks, PPE and things like that, you have a strong turnout. People know where you're going to be. What are some of the strategies you found have been successful at making sure people know that you're out there doing the work and that they can find help?
That's right. I mean, what we do is just try to leverage kind of existing networks. We go to barbershops, we go to daycare centers, we go to churches, in addition to, of course, the new traditional way to get the word out of being social media. And we also rely on, our leaders in the media space, people like you, who get the word out to make sure people know that they're not alone in this struggle. We know it's hard for people to keep food on the table. We know it's hard for people to get access to expungement and the other assistance they need to kind of get their life back on track and have some stability. And we're here to provide that. And thanks to people like you, but also our pastors that we work with and our interfaith leaders and our barbershop kind of network and things like that. People are getting the word out slowly but surely, but it's yielding real impact in terms of outpouring of support in the attendance at events.
You do a lot of work with justice reform and bail reform, and in Chicago, there's the folks who want to find a solution to our violence, go in a lot of different directions. It does seem like we are at an impasse when it comes to when bail reform was decided in Illinois, when they passed one of the pillars, they passed 4 pillars of reform in Springfield that the Black Caucus had built, and a lot of good things came from it. Do you have a sense of some of the preventative elements for, whether it's social services and education and economic opportunity? Because the bail reform, a lot of folks want to point to that as to why we're having an increase in violence in Chicago. Do you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, I do have thoughts about that.
There
is no anti-violence. There is no anti-violence strategy in Lake Forest or Deerfield, right? I mean, I think when you supersaturate neighborhoods and communities with opportunity, violence is not a problem. And I think that's just what's happening. We have disinvested communities where survival is people's daily operating, how they're operating, and you marry that with a military level supervision and people being assaulted and mistreated and brutalized. It adds up, and I think at the end of the day, the only outcome you can expect when you have these kind of intense poverty areas and intense abuse in terms of wages and abuse in terms of how police interact with people on occasions, it is going to yield the violence. It is going to yield the black market. It is going to yield the things that we know are there. So that's why we don't just talk about, let's do something about violence, but we also actively engage in the work necessary to make sure there are more job opportunities by expanding remedies like expungement and things like that, so more people have a chance to be seen for who they are when they're looking for job opportunities versus being judged based on their past. And that's why we work to expand access to housing, education, things like that. So we know people who have PhDs, who have master's degrees, aren't going to be as likely to engage in violence. We just need to make sure that the entire world embraces this whole notion of recognizing that poverty and violence go hand in hand. So in order to address violence, we have to address poverty, and that's all our work is centered around.
That is 100. I mean, it's so hard to get that through to folks that we keep having, people want to throw more people in prison. And look, my family, I have survived violence in my life. I am the sister of someone who was murdered, and so I understand that sense of lock everybody up, and we need to have justice and things like that. We also need to have some compassion. We need to have compassion and empathy for how somebody ends up in a situation. Look, I've talked about this. Of course, people will demonize a human being and say that they did something because they were a monster. And yes, of course, from my family, that is how it feels. But I also know that person, had they not been tortured as a child, had they felt accepted and loved and safe, they might not have had that sort of mental break that led them to what they ended up doing. And it does come from a collection of experiences in many instances where someone becomes violent and dangerous to others. We need to find a way to, like yesterday's violence, this young boy in Michigan who was the target of bullying. It happens everywhere. But when we have an entire community that is essentially, emotionally, physically disadvantaged in ways that most of us can never imagine, we have to think of other things rather than just throwing everybody in jail and throwing away the key. And that does that seem like what people just want to do all the time?
Yeah, and it's often that people who are, not even living in the communities that are really struggling with poverty and violence the most. So it's interesting that people don't listen to the people actually experiencing the hardship. So that's the part that's frustrating for me. A lot of this lock them up stuff is coming from people who are outside the communities rather than listening with communities who are inside the actual fulcrum of the struggle are explicitly asking for. They're asking for more investment in schools. They're asking for better hospitals. They're asking for better schools, more opportunity to get employment that's local and easy to access. And those requests are often ignored.
Yes. Yeah. Because there's no profit there for anybody else. That's my sense of things. We're talking to Todd Belcourt. He's the co-founder and executive director of Social Change. You can go to socialchange.site, SITE, to find out how you can support the work that they do. I'm sorry that we missed Giving Tuesday, but I know that you're still hoping that folks will support the work that you do, either financially or by volunteering as well, are ways in which people can help, and to be aware, right?
Absolutely. Giving Tuesday is every day. We're grateful for the money that people donate to support the work that needs to be done any day, any opportunity. But we do also understand that people are dealing with kind of unique economic circumstances. So time is more valuable more often. So if people have the opportunity to get involved and come out to events or support virtually, do some volunteering, we'd love that as well.
We are talking again to Todd Belcourt, Executive Director of Social Change and co-founder. Let's take a break here, Todd, if you don't mind hanging on for another segment. I know that Jim is on hold, would like to talk about the Supreme Court. Would you like to discuss what's going on in D.C.?
Oh, yeah, I'd be honored. Thank you.
Excellent. Again, the conversation continues. What's on your mind? Let us know. 773-763-WCPT. That's 773-763-9278. I'm Patti Vasquez, sitting in for Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Joan will be back tomorrow. More in a moment.
Where Are They Now with Art and Bobby.
Let's welcome our guest today, the national anthem singer for the Cubs, John Vincent. Good morning, John. This is my coach when I become an opera singer. I'm just teasing.
Let me hear it. Sing a little for me.
Figaro, Figaro, Figaro. There goes all the breaking of the glasses.
Tune into Where Are They Now, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on WCPT 820 a.m.
Hey, listen.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit beefy, or even with type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Affordable term life insurance is out there. Call Term Provider and speak with Big Lou at 800-481-1458, 800-481-1458, or visit biglou.com. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too. Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-590-7516. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Providers help thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-590-7516. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-590-7516. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too. Call 800-590-7516. 800-590-7516.
Dell Technologies' biggest business sale of the year has arrived. Step up your vision with top tech up to 50% off during their Cyber Monday event. Dell Technologies recommends Windows 11 Pro for business. Plus, get incredible savings on Windows 11 PCs, along with servers, monitors, and docks, all with free shipping. There's also special financing with Dell Business Credit. Get started by contacting your Dell Technologies advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL.
Meet Bob Manetti. In 2016, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Bob participated in a clinical trial that included cutting-edge radiation therapy and surgery. He's been in remission since completion. I'm Keisha Sharp. Since losing my mother to pancreatic cancer, I've been working to share the kind of state-of-the-art work being done by Stand Up to Cancer and Lustgarten Foundation. To learn more about the latest research, including clinical trials, visit pancreaticcancercollective.org.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
If you're looking to purchase a new home, you need to do what Joan did and call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Dahlia is a 27-year-old nurse with an income of $80,000 a year, purchasing her first home. Dahlia talked with an online lender who didn't answer questions, so she called her mom for advice. Dahlia's mom recommended she contact Team Hochberg, the only lender she trusted to help her only daughter finance her first home. Team Hochberg answered Dahlia's questions, talked her off the ledge multiple times. I know how that feels. And during the process, they secured the mortgage on Dahlia's first home. Let's review. Dahlia first contacted an online lender who didn't answer questions. Then, based upon her mother's recommendation, called Team Hochberg, who held Dahlia's hand throughout the entire process and successfully helped her secure the mortgage on her first home. Team Hochberg helped Joan and thousands of WCPT listeners, our listeners' children and grandchildren, secure mortgages on new homes like Dahlia. But they can't help if you don't call 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com. That number again is 855-563-2843 or visit 56david.com. Homeside Financial Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 1124061.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist, Patti Vasquez.
Hey, Hey, everybody. Sorry, just trying to straighten out. I've got a lot in this going on online, a lot going on in the world. We have the executive director and a co-founder of Social Change. We've got Todd Belcourt on the line. We also have in studio, when he's ready for headphones, I know I've got to get headphones for Terry Cosgrove, who is the CEO. Can you hear me now? Yay! Come on into that microphone. Terry Cosgrove is with Personal Pack, CEO of Personal Pack. Let me see if I got your mic on. Let's try this one. Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you too.
You go ahead and futz around because you came in and I've got Todd Belcourt on. And let's go to this because Todd and I have been talking about a lot of the work that Social Change does. He also has a legal background, so I know he's been following what's going on in D.C. Terry Cosgrove, I booked him on Sunday after seeing some comments by the Mississippi governor, and I wanted to talk to him. I didn't even realize it would be the same day as the Supreme Court hearing this Mississippi case, and Jim wants to join the conversation because we were discussing this earlier. Jim, what's on your mind?
Hi, how are you? It's just a long day today. The Republican strategists seem to get their way today with the appointments of the Supreme Court. I'm just curious, will they get their way with voter suppression? And these Republican strategists seem to be winning the day today, but it's going to be widely unpopular. And the thing that gets me is when people do go out to protest, you're going to have a Cattle Rittenhouse in the crowd. Will we have to put on body armor and et cetera, et cetera? You know, you had a mad president who was encouraging violence. It's a long day, and it's a shame that these Supreme Court judges can't look at each other eye to eye when you have such a divergence of opinion, completely like night and day. Anyway, Patty, it's a long day. Thank you very much.
And I'll be here till 6, Jim, so if you want to call back, you're welcome to. First, let me talk to, because Todd's on the line. He's in California. I don't think that Terry Cosgrove and Todd Belcourt, have you guys ever crossed paths in Springfield?
His name is familiar, so I apologize.
That's okay. No, I look forward to introducing you to each other.
Yeah, okay.
You'll remember each other.
Okay.
Todd.
Yeah, Terry's a legend. I definitely know him.
But can I respond to your last caller? Just one sentence. I hope every single person that's demonstrating and is upset today, make sure they register to vote in the next election, because we are at this day because elections have consequences, and all the people that sat out 2016 or voted for a third-party candidate rather than Hillary Clinton, the roosters are coming home. They came home today. They're going to come home on voting rights. They're going to come home on Second Amendment issues and the environment. Every single issue that people care about that are listening to this program is on the ballot in 2022, and we're seeing the result of not taking an election seriously in 2016. So everyone that's demonstrating, everyone that's angry, everyone that wants to, pick up a sign, make sure you're registered to vote, and you get everyone you know who's registered to vote, because 2022 is our last chance to save our democracy.
This is why it's so exciting to have Terry Cosgrove and Todd Belcourt on the line at the same time, because both of you pretty much have your hair on fire when it comes to fighting for people and getting them to vote. Todd, you've done this in Georgia and all across the country trying to get people out to vote. What are your thoughts today watching what's happening in D.C.?
Honestly, I can't say it any better. I mean, at the end of the day, the elections not just have consequences, but they have consequences that impact you and your family immediately and directly. Sometimes it may be harder for people to kind of see in ways in which the kind of odd machinations of the federal government really impact the day-to-day life. But if you ever needed an example, it's right here in front of your face. So definitely follow the two-step plan of registering and executing your vote. And ask other people to do the same, because that's the only way that we can be guaranteed not just change in the short term, but have the sort of country that we all can be proud of when we go overseas and talk about not to explain away how all these crazy things are happening and not having any really good answers for them.
I don't want to say this because Jim mentioned something that caught my attention about we will need to be in the streets. This is, it seems, do you both have the sense, Todd, I'll go to you first. Do you have the sense, hearing what the justices, in particular Kavanaugh and Coney Island, I know it's something else, but I just call her Amy. Is it Amy Coney Barrett? Sorry. But here's the thing.
I didn't even know what you were talking about at first. You said Coney Island, but now I got
it.
But she essentially said, what's the big deal of forcing a woman to continue a pregnancy that could be unsafe, unnecessary?
Because we have safe haven laws now, Patty. You haven't heard. Any woman can just go through a pregnancy, and if she doesn't want to care for the child after it's born, she can just drop it off at a fire station or a police station, and no problem. You didn't hear what she had to say today. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, and with a straight face. And talking about how that contraception is widely available, and if everyone just availed themselves to it, that we wouldn't need abortion. You weren't listening closely enough today. There are solutions.
There are, and Todd, with a law degree, and you see a Supreme Court justice saying things like that, does your head do you want to spontaneously combust? Because I do. I'm like, I can't.
Well, that's what makes the kind of whole hearing process such a farce. I mean, there's so many efforts undertaken on her behalf and others who are presenting themselves for confirmation to dodge these very questions, and to be just this plain and simple about how you feel and where your dog is in the fight is something that's unprecedented, frankly, and it's starting to show the ways in which the very fabrics of our democracy, in terms of having at least the appearance of neutrality, is something that's disappearing really quickly, and makes it even more important, as Terry already mentioned, that people get out and vote and make sure everyone they know is doing the same. So we can bring some normalcy back into the process. It hasn't worked for us overall. I mean, but it was better than what's going on now. So we need to make sure we at least get back to that so we can improve from that.
Well, Todd, I know that you're traveling, and I want to thank you so much for your time today. And we'll let folks know how they can participate, how they can support the work that you do, whether it's financially or by volunteering or just being better informed.
Keep up the great work, Todd.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to be on this call and share some things with your audience, Patty. Of course, people want to be engaged with our work. Just check us out at socialchange.site, like the website, SITE. And then, of course, if you're on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, it's Shy Social Change. We're not just in Illinois, we're in Missouri, we're in Indiana, we're in Wisconsin, we're in North Carolina, we're in Louisiana. So no matter where you are, your family members are, if they want to be more involved in the work to change communities' lives for the better, please reach out to us. We need people of all backgrounds, all ages, all skill groups and expertise, because that's what it takes to make things better. So thank you again for the opportunity. I appreciate you.
Take care.
Talk to you soon.
Safe travels. Can I ask when you're back, or are you not able to give us your travel plans? I want to know when I get to see you.
No, that's right. I'm going from here to D.C. to Wisconsin to Missouri to North Carolina. I'll be back by the 8th. So a lot of kind of running back.
Wow. All right. We'll touch base next week then. Be safe.
Yes, thank you very much. God bless you.
Take care. God bless you, too. We'll take a break here, and we are in studio with Terry Cosgrove, the CEO of Personal Pack, and I want to talk about everything we've covered so far. Anything that is on your mind, I know that the phone lines are already lighting up. 773-763-WCPT. That's 773-763-9278. I'm Patti Vasquez, sitting in for the one and only Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
This is important news. If you have unfiled tax returns, the IRS is shifting gears and ramping up investigations on non-filers this year. If you fail to file your tax returns for a year or more, or you owe back taxes, now's the time to call Optima Tax Relief before the IRS finds you. Optima is America's #1 most trusted tax resolution firm, specialized in helping individuals, families, and businesses get right with the IRS. They're experts in the Taxpayer Relief Initiative, a powerful new program that can make resolving tax issues easier. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, Optima's award-winning team has helped thousands of people protect their paychecks, bank accounts, homes, and businesses by putting their tax problems to rest, resolving over $1 billion in tax debts for their clients. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-709-7022. 800-709-7022. 800-709-7022.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Well, they're already out there.
Life is already full of surprises, but your tuition shouldn't be one of them. While education costs rise in the U.S. every year, University of Phoenix is committed to protecting you from rising tuition costs with our tuition guarantee. We lock in your tuition, so you can count on fixed, affordable tuition from the moment you enroll to the day you graduate from your program. Learn more at phoenix.edu.
Doctors Without Borders teams confront hard facts in conflict and crisis zones. When others look away, we step in to act. Because measles still kills more than 100,000 children every year, we're there to vaccinate more than 1 million. Because some countries have only 1 or 2 mental health professionals, we provided over 400,000 mental health consultations last year. The fact is, your support makes our life-saving work possible. Picture the impact we can have together. DoctorsWithoutBorders.org.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago traffic update.
Metro's UP North line in and outbound trains are running about 20 minutes late this afternoon due to track construction. In Wadsworth, on eastbound Russell Road, right at the Tri-State, a crash. In Old Mill Creek, an accident. At Millburn and Main Street. South on the Tri-State. Stop and go from I-80 down to Halstead with an accident blocking the right lane. Now the Kennedy outbound hefty on the west lane from Montrose to Harlem. 11 to the split, 8 in the express. Half hour out to O'Hare. Inbound to Kimball, a crash off onto the right shoulder. O'Hare back in 40. 24 then in from the junction. Ike outbound 38 minutes out to 390 inbound 46. Stevenson outbound is stopping and going to Central. From DeSable Lakeshore Drive out to 355 and 40. The Ryan out to 95th and 23. That's traffic. I'm Mary DeBanches.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT Willow Springs is powered by ComEd. Lower your energy bills and reduce your carbon footprint with the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist Patti Vasquez.
An incredible news day, and in the sense that I watch TV and I was like, can I just go back to sleep and pretend? And I think that's the problem, is that we see these horrible things happening in D.C. and we're like, can I just pull the covers up and go back to sleep? And we've done that for a lot of people have done that for 40 years. Terry Cosgrove, the CEO of Personal Pack, joins me in studio. For folks who don't know, I say Personal Pack as though everyone should know what Personal Pack is. I think that we haven't necessarily done due diligence of making sure people are aware of the work that Personal Pack does. Tell us, Terry.
Well, Personal Pack is a state pro-choice political action committee, which means we focus on state races, not races for Congress or for president. And when I started in 1989, Illinois was one of the most anti-choice states in the country. And now, with the repeal of parental notice a few weeks ago, we are now a 100% pro-choice state. And we are already feeling we are already receiving women from all over the country who live in states, particularly Texas, where either there's one provider, no provider in an entire section of a state like Missouri, who are coming to Illinois for abortion care because they can't get it in their home state. So we are here, and our job going forward in 2022 is to make sure that we elect our Governor J.B. Pritzker, who is a pro-choice hero on all legislation that pertains to reproductive health care, including abortion rights, and pay attention to the Illinois Supreme Court and defend our pro-choice allies in the Illinois General Assembly and defeat many more anti-choice candidates who will be running in 2022.
Having worked at this for so long, where do you have a moment where you realized, you got involved, was it in the 90s?
1989, I started Personal Pack, yeah.
So you started Personal Pack in 1989. What was the impetus for that? What was the catalyst for starting in 1989?
Well, a group of women got together right after the Webster decision, which was the very first decision, other than the taking away of Medicaid funding in the 70s, which was a complete disaster, obviously, for low-income women. But after that, the Webster decision was the decision that the Supreme Court first opened the door to state restrictions on abortion. So from there, we got spousal consent, a married woman being required to tell her husband to get her husband's permission to get an abortion. We got waiting periods. We got misinformed consent. We got dangerous parental involvement laws, basically allowing a parent or an adult to veto a young person's abortion decision. And we got all kinds. The worst part was the TRAP laws, the targeted regulations against providers, which has really shut down close to half in the last decade. 38% of the abortion care facilities in the country have been shut down because of those regulations.
Yeah, it was things like the width of a door.
Yes, the
width
of a door,
ridiculous.
Shrubbery, the height of shrubbery, and what's happened as a result of that is that the expense, having to provide security, bulletproof glass, security systems, all of that has driven up the cost of an abortion, which impacts, of course, like this issue always does, it falls most heavily on lower income women, and we know that women of color suffer the most in that category of low-income women, because right now, as I always say, a woman who lives in Dallas, Texas, right now gets on a plane and she flies to L.A. or San Diego and gets her abortion and comes home, and it's the low-income women in Texas that don't have the money to travel, to get on a Greyhound bus, to get in a car and drive for 2 days to get to Illinois, and then when they get here, what do? So all of these restrictions, just like it was before Roe v. Wade, fall most heavily on lower income women. In fact, Cook County Hospital had an entire abortion ward prior to Roe v. Wade that
treated women, right?
Yeah, treating women that were brought into the emergency room.
They went to sepsis, right?
Yes, with massive infections from self-induced abortions, coat hangers, knitting needles. This was the reality for women in Illinois and women across the country prior to the 1973 decision. Now, New York legalized in 1970, but once again, you had to have the money and the means in order to get to New York, in order to and get home, and there's childcare and all of that was involved. But again, wealthy women were able to do that, take a flight to New York, probably see a play at the same time, and then turn around and come home.
Like a spa weekend.
Exactly. And then if you're a young teenager, you didn't have to tell your parents you're going to visit an aunt or you're hanging out with friends or whatever. So it's a very, very dark day, and all the analysis that I've heard that it's just no way that the court's going to reject the Mississippi law, which is going to strike at the heart of Roe, and this is only the beginning. Once the court green lights these restrictions, we're going to get more and more of them. More and more cases will be back in front of this court. And Patty, when I first started at Personal PAC, and in the last 10 years, when I would say that Roe v. Wade was in trouble or would be overturned, people's eyes would roll, or I know what they were saying behind my back. I was being a drama queen. And here we are on the precipice of that happening. And what I want to warn your listeners now about today, and I heard a law professor on my way over here on the radio talking about how the next battle, and it's already happening, is birth control. The anti-choicers are working to outlaw the most commonly used forms of birth control, such as the IUD and most configurations of the pill. And I hope everyone listening to this today understands it's not just abortion. That's what's on the chopping block as the next thing, because they consider the IUD to be a murder weapon, because they call it an abortifacient. If you go to any of the anti-choice websites, it's right there. You know, it's like Maya Angelou says, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. Believe them.
Yes.
And it's all there. I mean, they're not quiet about it at all. And they're not saying it. In fact, I wish that one of our justices, like Sotomayor, would have asked the Mississippi Solicitor General today, do you consider the IUD to be an abortifacient? Because he said, end legal abortion, end it. There should be, and ask him, do you consider the IUD to be an abortifacient? Do you consider it to be an abortion? And he would have had no choice, or to ask if there's no exceptions for rape and incest in the Texas law, and asked them, do you think there should be an exception for rape and incest? Because that's where we are, and that's where we're going. Yeah.
But I also think, and I know we have a couple of listeners on hold, and I promise I'll get to them in a second. By the way, when you came in, I had, remember when you came in during the middle of my segment, and I was trying to find the buttons for where your mic was, so I apologize that during one of the breaks, I had an extra mic open over there, because I'm like, which end is it? And people are like, the mic was open during the break. I I was so excited to have you in studio that I want to make sure that I could hear what you had to say, that I had everything. I'm like, yes, Terry, tell us everything. You just mentioned the direction that we're going in, which is the next step logically for all of these groups, these radical groups who want to really restrict women's access to reproductive health. You just said that it's also contraception. For me, the next logical step, because they are criminalizing abortion, and when they say that it's murder, is also to lock up anyone who tries to have an abortion, charge them with murder if they've had an abortion, charge the doctors with killing. I mean, that is, if you extrapolate everything, that's a logical conclusion too.
Absolutely. You know, when you say radical, I want you to realize radical does not equal fringe. This is not out of the out in left field thinking. There's a whole movement in this country. Yeah. It's not a fringe movement. No. It's radical, but it is organized. Yes. And they're writing articles right now about what their plans are around bounty hunters for everything else. In fact, Representative Jackson Lee from Texas was on MSNBC this morning talking about the bounty laws for people that assisted slaves who are escaping slavery, and and that's where we're going. I mean, we are there. I mean, we are there. And they are plotting right now what the penalties will be, and so
that's exactly what I've been thinking. Steve from the Gold Coast wants to join our conversation. What's on your mind, Steve?
Yes, I wanted to echo what your guest had alluded to earlier in terms of, elections having consequences. I mean, twice in the last 20 years, we've had, third-party candidates, again, well-intended people like Ralph Nader and Jill Stein and others, who ran, and again, I think that they're decent people, but, in an attempt to try and, get someone, the kind of attention that we want in the voting process, the election ended up being thrown to somebody who was far worse, be it George Bush Jr. or in the case of 2016, Donald Trump. So yes, elections matter. And I'm sorry, if you believe that, that Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are just, two sides of the same coin, I think you're detached from reality.
Thank you.
Yes, I understand that, that yes, there are people who take issue with the fact that both parties have far too much money that's coming from corporate interests and other special interests. But I'm sorry, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are not in the same ballpark. Not ideologically, not intellectually, not in terms of their capacity to execute public policy in a rational way. I mean, again, night and day. So yes, I understand why you might have wanted somebody because you were disillusioned, and I too. I understand that the institution that is the Democratic Party favored Hillary Clinton, and yes, you can feel cheated if you were a Bernie supporter. But that does not mean you should have stayed at home. And I have yet to understand how people who supported Bernie ended up voting for Donald Trump. But there were a significant number who did. And so, yes, elections have consequences, and we've got to, stop letting people simply get away with this notion that, oh, well, I didn't get my way, so I'm just going to support some nutcase in some third party, attempt to derail something. They're not going to get elected, but they can put the wrong person in office. And, again, I didn't really care about this sort of thing because, again, it's not as if Jill Stein was going to win anything. But if you look at the various states where she got, where she garnered votes, it was enough to throw the election.
I believe Wisconsin and Michigan were two
easily,
places.
and Pennsylvania. It was the whole, the three states were fewer than 80,000 votes between them. I mean, it was, but, thank you very much, Steve, because I want to point out to people that had Hillary Clinton won, this court would be a 6-3 progressive court. And what that would have meant is Citizens United would have been gone. Mm-hmm. It meant we wouldn't, that all of the civil rights work around voting would be secured, and Roe v. Wade would be solid right now. So that's basically what we let slip away. And here we are today. So thank you so much for calling and reinforcing that. And, we can't change the past, but what we can do is we can act differently in the future. And that's what I hope anyone listening here today will take from this. Okay, 2016 is over, 2020 is over. Now we can't make the same mistakes going forward because, like I was talking to Patty during the break, the right-wingers are so sophisticated, organized, and focused on their goals, and we need to be the same way and understand what we're working for instead of arguing around the edges and losing critical elections.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. It has to be sustained. That's one of the things we talk about when we have Heartland Signal as our news arm of WCPT 820 is making sure that there has to be an elevated platform for the messages that we're trying to get out there, because the right wing has been focused and sustained for more than 50 years. And I just heard on Tom Hartman's show, I did not know this, that President Johnson, Lyndon B. Johnson's the last president to win, a Democratic president to win a white majority. He's the last Democrat, which means the rest of it has been with people of color and some white voters, still white voters, but it has taken a collaboration with people of color, and I don't know if abortion is going to be the tipping point for a lot of white women in other states to go, well, wait a minute. I don't know what's going to take, because they certainly didn't care last year. In 2015, they have not. They've shown up in the opposite. They've not put their own interests at the forefront, their own safety, and they have not kept that in mind. I mean, it didn't matter that President Trump says he grabs us by the vajayjay. That's the best I could do with that phrase. Mm-hmm. But let's take a break here before I get too worked up, and let me close all the mics while we take a break. We're in studio with Terry Cosgrove, the CEO of Personal Pack, and I'll take your calls. We've got Judy, Dave, and Denise on hold, and I promise we will get to your calls right after this. It's the Joan Esposito Show, live, local, and progressive. I'm Patti Vasquez, sitting in for her today. She will be back tomorrow. More in a moment.
Amy Goodman reports on the news stories rarely covered by the corporate media.
In Chile, security forces shot dead 2 indigenous Mapuche leaders during clashes in the province of Arauco. The southern coastal region has been under a state of emergency, with the Chilean government deploying 2,000 soldiers to the region as it attempts to suppress the Mapuche community and their fight to recover their ancestral lands.
Democracy Now!, weekday evenings at 11 on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
This is the sound of the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program, saving you money and energy while helping you lower your carbon footprint. With discounts on Energy Star certified LED bulbs, so you can come back to a home full of savings. Learn more at ComEd.com/lighting. ComEd, powering lives.
Dell Technologies' biggest business sale of the year has arrived. Step up your vision with top tech up to 50% off during their Cyber Monday event. Dell Technologies recommends Windows 11 Pro for business. Plus, get incredible savings on Windows 11 PCs, along with servers, monitors, and docks, all with free shipping. There's also special financing with Dell Business Credit. Get started by contacting your Dell Technologies advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL.
Napa know-how.
Right now, a 5-quart jug of Napa full synthetic motor oil is only $19.99. It's the hottest deal of the year for the coldest time of the year. So if you're in your car right now, there's no need to turn on the heat. I'm about to read this sizzler again. That's Napa full synthetic for a hot $19.99. Quality parts, helpful people. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
At participating locations, does not include taxes and fees. Advertised sale price not available in some states. Offer ends 12/31/21.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist, Patti Vasquez.
Yeah, and today, this comedian, talk show host, and activist is fired up. There's a lot going on in the news, and it isn't enough to just be angry. It's enough to do something. How many calls to action do we need to have, whether it's gun violence or today's news coming out of D.C.? Joining us is Terry Cosgrove, the CEO of Personal Pack, and a lot of folks are calling in. They have a lot of thoughts. We're going to keep you here as long as you'll stay, by the way, Terry. I'm just
keep
saying,
it going.
Because folks are calling in. We've got Judy from Niles. Judy, it's always great to hear from you. What's on your mind today?
Oh, God, can't even imagine how much is on my mind today. This is just, I have been voting since I was 21. I've just figured out that 60 years. And I have never missed one except one time when I went in the hospital. I unloaded a whole lot of this on Lady B, so thank heavens for her. So I probably won't swear. And I was a teacher. I was a teacher for 8 years, and I learned that that's a habit. And I didn't want to drop something on my toe and let loose in the middle of his classroom.
I have my fingers on the dump button ready to go.
No, I think I've got it under control. But I feel that I have worked all the time, and they're still screwing us over. I did, since we were retired, work for the Pritzker campaign a little bit. I mean, they said, could I call? And I said, no. I really, I don't know anybody anymore. I was old. But I brought plants over for their office. I said, if you need bodies, I will show up, which I did. And fortunately met both of them, and I'm very happy with that choice. But these people are so mean. I don't understand this. And I was raised Catholic, and so I was told not to. But I always thought, I can't make a decision for someone who doesn't believe that.
Right.
I mean, how can you do that? Then I went to work in a personnel office, and we had two very different scenarios with women there. And they both, I'm about to cry. They both needed them, and fortunately it was legal, and they got them. But their lives would have been ruined. Mm-hmm. One wouldn't have been able to work. One would have been kicked out of her house. I mean, I don't understand these people at all.
It is not about empathy or concern for the well-being of women or the children they want to force them to raise or to give away or drop off at a safe haven, because why not force a woman to complete a pregnancy?
Well, what about the poor child that's going to get kicked out of the house before she even has it?
Right?
Mm-hmm. No.
And they get, and they get desperate, and who are they going to kill themselves?
Exactly.
Right. The teenage suicide rate is the vast majority of teenage suicides take place because of pregnancy and also being LGBTQ. Those are the top two reasons that the vast majority of teenage suicides take place around.
Exactly.
So. Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for calling, Judy.
Hello, Terry, by the way. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you for calling. Great to meet you. And keep supporting Governor Pritzker. We have to reelect him in 2022.
Oh, I like him.
Yeah, don't forget that, because there's...
have to see the man and shake his hand and I liked him right away.
Great. He's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judy. Did we help you get it off your chest, or...
I'm breathing a little better. But I've had a kitchen leak, and the furnace man just left. So it was not going to be good.
Were you cussing in front of the furnace guy?
No. He's just left. But
okay.
Unfortunately, my heat is back on.
There you go. Well, good.
Thank you.
Be well. Take care, Judy. You brought up something, Terry, about the suicide rate for young people who find out that they are pregnant, young women, and LGBTQ. There was a statement by Justice Sotomayor about what she sees as a very dangerous situation with these extremist judges moving. It's not just abortion. We are also talking about not just gay marriage, but also gay relationships.
Oh yeah.
People don't understand that this is not, and this isn't just like trying to wedge them. They've already kicked the door open.
Yeah,
they're just seeing how much they can get through that door.
Right. For now, and then there will be more. And this whole argument today that was so dangerous is that the court should be neutral. I mean, when Kavanaugh was making that argument, we're being asked to make a decision here to side with, he used the term pro-life, which I think is disgusting. They're anti-choice. And the pro-choice side, no, you should be neutral. Everyone should be neutral. The only people that should be making a decision about this is not Supreme Court justice, not elected officials, but the choice should be with women, and they're the ones who should be making the choice. They're the only ones that should be voting on this. A woman who becomes pregnant is the only one that should have a vote on this, and no one else.
That's the only vote that matters.
And it was disgusting the way he put this, like, we're just going to be neutral and send this back to the state so the people can decide. Well, women are people. I hate to inform him of that, and they should be the ones making the decision, and that's it. End of story.
End of story.
And then the whole, the Amy Coney Barrett. I like Coney Island better, though, actually. But
Crazy Coney Island.
But the casual way in which all of the right-wingers talked about pregnancy during today's hearing. And when she brought up, well, we have safe haven laws now, so anyone that doesn't want to keep a pregnancy after they bring it to term can just drop it off at a police station or a firehouse. Yeah. Just, we have safe haven laws, so why do we need to have abortion? And then the whole argument about contraception, we have access to contraception now. So basically ignoring the fact that abortion is a reality, is ever necessary, is needed. And so the fantasy world that they're living in, and it's worse than a fantasy level. They know better, but they're intentionally lying about women's lives, women's health, and putting out this disgusting pablum that has no basis in reality, and they know it. Because all you have to do is look at the statistics from Mississippi, and Sotomayor did a great job of spelling those out about. And so did the Solicitor General from the Biden administration about how much that not all women have access to birth control, and it fails. And and young women who don't even know they're pregnant at 6 or 10 or 10 weeks or 8 weeks, and just went on and on refuting all. They know all that,
right?
They know all that,
and they don't care.
But they just stand there with a smirk on their face and lie.
Exactly. And here's before we go to the break, here's what Justice Sotomayor said while questioning Mississippi Solicitor General, the Mississippi Solicitor General Scott Stewart. I'm so excited to read this because it's filled with so much anger. Will this institution survive the stench that this creates in the public perception that the Constitution and its reading are just political acts? I don't see how this is possible. We'll continue our conversation. It's the Joan Esposito Show, live, local, and progressive. I'm filling in for Joan. This is Patti Vasquez. Joan will be back tomorrow. In studio, we have the CEO of Personal Pack, Terry Cosgrove, and we'll take your calls and continue our conversation when we come back after this.
Hey, Chicago, it's Tom Hartman here. Who doesn't love a great roof? I know my friends at Roofers and Waterproofers Local 11 sure do, and I'm proud to introduce them as the local sponsor of the Tom Hartman program in Chicago. I can't imagine anything more important to any building than a roof. And union-built roofs are built to last. Listen to my show weekdays 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, sponsored by Roofers Local 11.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-590-7516. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Providers help thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-590-7516. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-590-7516. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too. Call 800-590-7516. 800-590-7516.
Dell Technologies' biggest business sale of the year has arrived. Step up your vision with top tech up to 50% off during their Cyber Monday event. Dell Technologies recommends Windows 11 Pro for business. Plus, get incredible savings on Windows 11 PCs, along with servers, monitors, and docks, all with free shipping. There's also special financing with Dell Business Credit. Get started by contacting your Dell Technologies advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL.
Get your free credit scores and find the right credit card for you at Credit Karma. Approval not guaranteed, subject to checks.
AP News. I'm Tim McGuire. A person in San Francisco is the first person in this country infected with the Omicron variant of the coronavirus. Here's Sagar Meghani with more.
The White House says it's a person who recently returned to California from South Africa. Officials say the person was fully vaccinated but not boosted and has mild symptoms that are improving. The variant's been found in more than 24 countries, and scientists like Dr. Anthony Fauci are racing to see if it's more dangerous than previous versions. precautions.
We're really very early in the process.
Fauci says there's no need to panic. Instead, the unvaccinated should get their shots, and those who already have need to get boosted.
I keep coming back to that because that's really the solution to this problem.
Sagar Magani, Washington.
A sheriff's investigator, during a hearing for the 15-year-old charged with killing 4 fellow students and wounding several other people inside Michigan's Oxford High School, says he made a video about shooting and killing students the night before opening fire in the hallways of the school. Sheriff Mike Broussard says the boy was armed when he came out of a school bathroom.
Began shooting, moved through hallways and back through hallways, and was apprehended in the hallway. Never went into a room. He was in the hallway the whole time.
Bouchard adds that his parents were called to the school before his alleged attack.
The schools did have contact with the student the day before and the day of the shooting for behavior in the classroom that they felt was concerning. In fact, the parents were brought in the morning of the shooting and had a face-to-face meeting with the school.
The sheriff says his department knew nothing about the student before yesterday's attack. Ethan Crumbley is charged as an adult with murder and other crimes. This is AP News. The Supreme Court held 2 hours of arguments today on a challenge of Mississippi's abortion law, which bars most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, long before the likely viability of a fetus. Viability is a key part of the 1973 decision that legalized abortion. AP Supreme Court reporter Mark Sherman reports Chief Justice John Roberts might be alone in his indication that he would favor upholding the Mississippi law without acting directly on Roe versus Wade.
It's unclear, though, whether the other 5 justices or how many of the other 5 conservatives will go along with him for a more modest ruling. And I should say that even that more modest ruling, abortion rights supporters would say, would effectively overrule Roe.
A decision by the court is expected in late June. That's some 4 months before the 2022 congressional elections. I'm Tim McGuire, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic update.
In Elgin, tread carefully through the intersection of National Street and Grove Avenue as the traffic signals are flashing red. In Willow Springs, a rollover accident at 107th Street and Flavin Road. In Oak Forest, a crash at 151st and Oak Park Avenue. Northbound Tri-State struggles from I-80 to Halstead, residual delays from an earlier accident. Eden's Inn from Lake Cook Road 27 hitting the brakes at Cicero. Now the Kennedy outbound 17 to the Splint, 11 in the Express 35 to O'Hare. Inbound from the airport 47, 26 of that in from the junction. Ike either way, 47 minutes between 390 and the Circle. Stevenson outbound stacked up to Central. From DuSable Lakeshore Drive to 355 and 52. The Ryan out to 95th and 25. That's traffic. I'm Mary DeBadges.
This hour of Joan Esposito Live, Local, and Progressive is brought to you by Team Hochberg. If you want to buy a house or refinance a house, call 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com.
Audible is the best place to listen for everything you're into, from comedy and motivation to popular podcasts and best-selling audiobooks. Right now, take advantage of a special holiday offer and save 60% on your first 3 months. Learn more and sign up at audible.com.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist Patti Vasquez.
This is Patti Vasquez, and I want to thank our station manager, Mark Pinsky, for coming in and saying, hey, let me show you a trick for making sure that your microphones are all off. Thank you, Mark. We've got Terry Cosgrove in studio. He is the CEO of Personal PAC, a nonpartisan political action committee dedicated to electing pro-choice candidates to state and local offices in Illinois. See, I don't have to make you introduce yourself that way every time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I love your tagline with all the things you are.
The comedian, radio show host.
Yes. Oh, my God,
Mom,
that's amazing. Mom, yes.
all kinds of things.
Yes,
Well, look, what brings us into the public sphere, your work in Personal PAC, my work in Springfield over the last decade, fighting for families, in particular families who have a family member with disabilities, that expanded, right? For you expand from making sure that women have access to reproductive health. That it has a lot of effect on everyone's life. It's not just, people think of abortion and it becomes a single issue. It's a multi-layered issue. It's mental health. It's physical health. It's safety. It's everything.
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up, Patty, because what I talked to legislators about, in fact, I testified in front of a committee in Springfield in 2017, and I send my testimony out pretty regularly. But I mean, women being able to time, space, and plan their pregnancies is so fundamental to so many of the issues that we face in our society. We know that when women are able to time, space, and plan their pregnancies, their economic status improves tremendously. Their ability to attain higher education improves dramatically. We're not talking about a little bit. We're talking about in leaps and bounds. In fact, there was a in Colorado and in St. Louis, they gave low-income women and young women the birth control of their choice at no charge for 5 years. And the results of that were a 50% drop in the teenage pregnancy rate, a 42% drop in the abortion rate, and the number of young low-income women that were able to finish high school and go on to college increased by 30%. Now, I know,
That's
with
astounding.
the simple way of providing access to birth control. And all of that resulted in healthier families, fewer problems in terms of education. I mean, if you look at every single aspect of life, we know that when a 15-year-old becomes pregnant and gives birth, we know so many things about her. We know that she's more likely to be a victim of sexual abuse. We know she's more likely to be a victim of domestic violence. We know she has a 1/3 of 1% chance of getting a 4-year college degree. I could go on for the next 10 minutes and talk about how now that isn't to mean that there are 15 and 16-year-olds that get pregnant and that are able to manage it. But what I'm saying, statistically, the overwhelming vast majority of young women or women that get pregnant against their will, their better judgment, will have very, very detrimental outcomes for their lives. Life expectancy goes down by 5 years. I mean, every single aspect that you look at. And so what the court did today is they railed against all of that. They railed against the things that we know add stability to our society, add stability to families, add stability to individual women. And so I tried to make that point in Springfield. No matter what issue you're looking at, no matter what it is, it should start with women being able to time, space, and plan their pregnancies, because that just waves out to so many other issues. And you know, when we went to the commercial break before, and you brought up LGBTQ issues, but there are so many other issues that Roe is the building blocks of, and it was brought up today, and I don't see that there's any way that there isn't a case that's brought to try to overturn marriage equality, civil unions, stopping Social Security from paying same gender couples their dues Social Security. So I think we're just opening the door here in addition to contraception, which is the next big battle. It's not next, it's already going on right now.
It's so many things, and the phone lines have lit up. I know that Denise has been patiently waiting on hold. Denise, thank you so much for holding on there. What's on your mind?
Well, I would like to bring to mind, if I'm not wrong, that in the last election, when Kavanaugh was being considered, in the last decision to make Kavanaugh a member of the Supreme Court, the lady Collins of Maine swore that he promised her He would not make any.
I thought about that all day today. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Susan Collins.
Yep.
He won't touch Roe. Well,
yep. Ta-da!
She screamed at all of the people who were rejecting to her. No, no, no. He promised me. Well, she should pay for that and pay for it dearly, depending on how this turns out. And these people are all politicians, like the rest of us are, and they have to consider this decision coming about the 30th of June of 2022. 4 months before the election. How are they going to fare in that election? Are they really going to turn it over? Women are going to be very, very upset with that decision when they wake up on July 1st and find out what situations they're in now. And I believe they may chicken out and not do it. I think Kavanaugh and Roberts both are hesitant to do it. Roberts wants to think of his court as a very noble one, and he doesn't want anything drastic like this to happen, but it looks like he's willing to go along with it.
I think that their righteousness is what drives them. They think that they have the ultimate authority and knowledge to do this.
And all its money is what drives them. The Catholic Church and the Evangelical Church, but right now the Catholic Church is driving it everywhere under the sun. The Catholic Church and the priests in the church think they have to save the life of the babies and change the mood in the country from all the priest abuse of children to abortion. And they're happy to get the priest abuse of children off the front pages and abortion back on the front pages.
That's an interesting point. Is that manipulation of emotions, right? Is saying that it's murder, and we don't. You talked about all the things that are the benefits of having reproductive health, access to abortion. That's a long list of things. I was just talking to someone yesterday who said Republicans sell brownies. We give people the ingredients and the recipe, and everyone's like, I don't know what to do with this, but I know what to do with this image of these limbs and like distort reality and lie, but it's successful. They've been banging that drum for 50 years, and I don't know what we're playing 50 years not of catch up, because you've been not catch up but trying to meet them where they are, and we can't.
Yeah, in fact, I haven't read it.
Also, consider the fact that maybe Ruth Bader Ginsburg did not die on her own. Well, I know it sounds radical.
Well, I will say
it's very possible. Right, 2 months before the election, she's dead.
Well, Terry has some thoughts on. I mean, well, here, folks. Who, I know in my house we were talking about this not too long ago, that perhaps there was a moment when things could have gone differently during her tenure as a Supreme Court justice. When she died, I knew in that moment we were in a lot of trouble. Actually, I thought we were done, and it looks like we're heading in that direction for Roe v. Wade. And that was what everybody thought, that really held on to that as being the wall between everything that Terry talked about earlier, making it harder for providers to even stay open for access all over the country, and then chiseling away at it. I remember when the governor of Arizona said that life begins 2 weeks before conception, and I was like, what is happening? It's been happening for decades.
Of course. And of course, the white men in this country want white women to start having babies again, because they don't want to become the minority if they can help it.
Well,
but they're going to become the minority whether they can help it or not.
Yep. Thanks so much for calling, Denise. We appreciate it. What are your thoughts, Terry?
Well, first of all, I want to talk about the Catholic Church, because they are very, very active in politics and in legislation. And as someone who lobbied in Springfield for 30 years, there is a phalanx of lobbyists from the Catholic Church that are in Springfield, and the hypocrisy of them testifying against a pro-choice bill or in favor of an anti-choice bill at a committee hearing, and then an hour later they're in another committee hearing testifying against aid to low-income women for the WIC program, for clothing, for food,
exactly.
and wanting to cut taxes under the guise of small government, but not providing the support. It's one thing to say that you think that, like my tagline is, not every pregnancy needs to be planned, but every child deserves to be loved and cared for. And that's what I stand by.
Yes.
But their position is, well, we're going to force women to carry pregnancies against their will and better judgment, and then we're not going to turn around and offer any support for them, except the, Amy Coney Barrett's safe haven laws. Well, what happens to all these so-called babies that are dropped off at police stations and fire stations? So who's taking care of them? Are the anti-choicers stepping up and providing all the, the clothing, the housing, the food, not to mention health care, everything else? No, they're not. In fact, they're fighting against that. And so the hypocrisy is really not surprising. And then they'll go to another committee hearing and they'll testify against a gay rights bill. And it just keeps up. So the hypocrisy around the Catholic Church is all over the place. You don't have to scratch very hard in order to see it.
Not at all. That's Terry Cosgrove, the CEO of Personal Pack. We're going to take more of your calls when we come back. George and Dave are on hold. You're listening to the Joan Esposito Show, live, local, and progressive. I'm sitting in for Joan. This is Patti Vasquez. She will be back tomorrow. More in a moment on WCPT 820.
WCPT encourages you to think green. A healthy compost pile is easy to maintain with a few simple steps. Composting relies on heat, water, air, and a mixture of greens, fresh grass clippings, spent flowers, and fruit and vegetable scraps, and browns, straw, dried leaves, and pine needles. Add smashed up eggshells, coffee grounds, tea bags, and even shredded black and white newspaper. Do not add animal products, meat, dairy, gravy, bones, and mayo, or grease and oils to prevent unpleasant odors that could attract animals. Keep a container in the kitchen to collect vegetable scraps to add to the compost pile periodically. Every few weeks, mix the material with a hoe, pitchfork, or sturdy rake to aerate the pile and distribute moisture evenly. In about 6 months, your compost will look like soil and it can be used to supplement your garden. For more information about composting from the Chicago Botanic Garden, visit chicagobotanic.org.
Today, I'm taking it to the streets to give people the good news. Oh, excuse me, hello. I'm Flo from Progressive, and did you know...
No, I'm just waiting for the bus.
So then you have time to hear about how with Home Quote Explorer, you can check if you're paying too much for home insurance.
Yeah, if I was interested in talking to you, which I'm not.
Okay, I'll do the talking, and you just check if you can be saving, which is going to be pretty hard to do if you put on your headphones. Okay.
See if you're paying too much for home insurance with Home Quote Explorer. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations.
Hi everyone, it's me, Tooth 19. I can't believe I'm watching my brother, Tooth 30, get his first root canal today. I told him that black hole didn't look pretty. It got so painful it kept all 32 of us up last night, in agony. Thank goodness Total Dentistry could see him right away. Oh, there's the needle. But wait, he didn't even flinch. I thought a root canal would be much worse. My brother, Tooth 30, is sleeping through all of this. The Total Dentistry team makes this look so easy and simple. Maybe it's because they do this every day. Well, my brother 30 is done now, and he doesn't even remember a thing. Maybe now we can all get a good night's rest. I love Total Dentistry because they know teeth are people too. Total Dentistry, 847-358-2477, or visit totaldentistry.org. Total Dentistry, a general dental practice like no other.
When the forgotten poor are in need of healing, they wait for a ship unlike any other. Mercy Ships, a floating hospital staffed by volunteers, heroes of mercy who donate their time to save lives.
Every human has the right to have a place at the table of the human race.
If you could just see the smiles that you get when lives have been changed, then it would make it all worth it.
To learn more about Heroes of Mercy, go to mercyships.org.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist, Patti Vasquez.
Joan is going to be back tomorrow. I'm Patti Vasquez, and we're in studio with Terry Cosgrove, the CEO of Personal Pack, and it's a lively conversation today about what's going on in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court listening to the arguments from the Mississippi Attorney. Is it their Attorney General?
He's called Solicitor General.
Solicitor General, and of course those who are fighting against. This is about for the Mississippi. It's a 15-week ban, right? After 15 weeks, a full ban on abortions.
Right.
Full ban.
Right.
No matter what.
Right.
Okay.
But what this case will do, and after they filed the case, and Amy Coney Barrett was appointed to the court, that there was, in fact, Sotomayor quoted the people in that quote that you read. She was referring to the quotes from Mississippi legislators who said, now we have a court that will overturn Roe, and that's why they passed the law. So it was very intentional.
They're licking their chops.
Yeah,
they're like, oh, we got him now.
We got him now. Exactly. Politically, they were like, okay, we've done our job. So them overturning Roe doesn't have anything to do with the law, doesn't have anything to do with the facts on the ground. It happens to be that they won politically, and unfortunately our side doesn't understand that as much. But what I want to point out, though, is that the Mississippi law, regardless of how they talk about it, regardless of how they spin it, if they uphold it, they're gutting Roe v. Wade because of the viability standard that's at 24 or 25 weeks. And if they open that door and say that standard no longer applies, I guarantee you within 5 minutes, another state's going to be in with a 12-week ban, a 6-week ban, a 2-week ban. I mean, it opens, once you knock down the viability standard, there's nothing left. There's nothing left of Roe, and it's only a matter of the next case that the court will hear. And also, if they knock down the viability standard and they take the undue burden standard, it totally goes away. I mean, there's nothing that there's nothing that isn't permissible after that, is what I'm saying. Yeah. There's nothing.
My brain just went sci-fi.
There's nothing.
I just started thinking about like women who want to have an abortion.
Understand, and let me underscore this.
Yes.
They have not touched the Texas case since September 1.
They're letting it stand.
They're letting it stand. So if you want to know where this court stands, forget Mississippi and what they did today. All you have to do is look at, they even refuse to hear the Texas case.
Right, where you can be deputized to put a bounty on somebody's head if they're the Uber driver, the provider, everybody.
So today was just window dressing for
I don't like those windows.
Because
I do not like those windows.
Here we are, December 1st, so we've had September, October, November. 3 months the Texas law has been in place, and they have not even done a single thing to address it.
Hey, George from the South Side, what's on your mind today? You're joining us, Terry Cosgrove and Patti Vasquez in studio.
Well, good afternoon, Patty and Terry. And Terry, all praise to you for all the work you've done over the years and the work you're continuing to do. And I'm proud to be one of your contributors, a minor one.
Thank you so much, George. I appreciate that. And so does everyone. So, who appreciates it? The women of Illinois, who you are supporting with your contribution.
Thank you.
Because of the pro-choice candidates we've been able to elect. So thank you very much.
Well, I'm one of those who's been out of work due to the COVID since
I'm sorry to hear that.
So I can't contribute as much as I'd like, but I do what I can. And that's what all of us should do. Anyway, just maybe 3 quick points to get at. You got a very nice woman caller a little earlier who said she just can't understand these people, these anti-abortion people. It's not that hard to understand them. They have a mindset that is illogical and irrational, and it's not fact-driven. And secondly, they are people who are absolutely comfortable with the fact that one of our 9 Supreme Court justices is an alcoholic rapist. That's who Kavanaugh is. Anybody who wants to argue with me, I'll be happy to do so. But
I won't. Not me.
Not me.
Okay. I mean, I remember when I first became aware of him and saw him in the hearings, that was my read on him immediately. That this guy he's slime. He's a creep.
Yeah,
he is. He's made a decision that will affect over half the population. The third thing is the people on the other side don't think about things like this, but any family care physician or pediatrician or primary care doctor will tell you that over the last, 40, 50, 60 years, the average initial age of menstruation has been going down every decade. It's not unusual for doctors to have girls in their practices who have begun to menstruate at 8 to 9 and 10 years old. And so that brings me to, what is the definition of a woman? Well, to me, a woman is a human female who can get pregnant. And does anybody think that a pregnant 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12-year-old is anything but a disaster? I mean, any doctor will tell you that their skeletons are not ready for that, especially their pelvises. Their bone ends haven't closed off. And how can a woman, a young woman that young, be anything but wrecked emotionally and psychologically if she forced to carry a baby to term?
Here's a child who might still be putting out cookies and milk for Santa Claus, and we're saying that she should be forced to carry out a pregnancy, is essentially what they're saying.
Well, George, is that you mentioned that one of the most heartbreaking things for me on working to repeal Illinois' parental notice law was hearing from the volunteer attorneys who represented minors in judicial bypass hearings, which were when they couldn't tell their parents because they were victims of violence or rape or incest. They would have to go to court and basically humiliate themselves in front of a court reporter and a judge. And the stories I heard would make your blood curdle. And when you mention the not being able to be a parent, there was one case where and half the Personal PAC board members are volunteer judicial bypass attorneys. So it was like every day I was getting an update on the case that one of them had. And one of them was, I'll never forget it, was a 15-year-old. And when the judge asked her why she wanted an abortion, she fell to her knees, sobbing, rocking back and forth, saying, "I can't take care of myself. Please don't make me have a baby, please," begging. And the judge was so upset. She came from behind the bench and hugged her and said, "You're going to be all right. You're going to be all right." But this is what we're putting people through. This is young women. And in terms of the earlier age of menstruation, we also know that incest is a repeated violation. It's not a one-off. If there's a family member or a neighbor who is committing incest, it doesn't happen just once. It happens repeatedly. So the reason why I mention that, because the chance of getting a very young woman, a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old pregnant, is very high because of the repeated offense.
Oh my goodness gracious! Yeah.
Could I make one more quick point?
Of course.
Whenever I get into discussions with people on the opposite side of this, I try to tell them, look, I understand this is a tough issue. There's huge interests and arguments on both sides. But something has to give. It can't be both ways. You can't be both pro-choice and anti-choice. And I choose to come down on the side of the living, breathing women who are my fellow American citizens. They have rights. They have a right to live their life by their own choices. And if that means a fetus or an embryo has to be aborted, as sad as that is, the living, breathing woman who's a citizen of this country has a right to make that decision for herself. Otherwise, she's not free.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's if we're talking about freedoms, that's exactly the core of all of this, is the freedom to be happy, healthy, and safe, to live your life the way you choose.
And I just want to add one other thing here. The issue isn't legal abortion versus illegal abortion, because abortion has always existed, and women will get abortions regardless of the law. The issue is how safe it's going to be. So we knew, and I mentioned this in the last segment, I'll mention it again, prior to 1973, there was an entire ward at Cook County Hospital with 17 beds called the septic abortion ward, where women were brought into the emergency room from having abortions. The reason why they're at the hospital, they weren't safe abortions. Right. And this is what we're about to realize again with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And it's actually happening right now. There are women that are doing desperate things, and women who are being arrested for suspected self-induced abortions. So.
Thank you so much for calling, Joe. I've got to run to the break. We're going to continue our conversation when we come back on the Joan Esposito Show, live, local, and progressive. I'm Patti Vasquez, sitting in for her today. She'll be back tomorrow. Terry Cosgrove, the CEO of Personal PAC, joins me in studio. More after this on WCPT 820.
WCPT 820 is proud to introduce Heartland Signal, a multimedia newsroom of WCPT 820. Heartland Signal is dedicated to providing news coverage for the 2022 midterms in the Midwest region. At heartlandsignal.com, you can find all the day's news and views to keep you informed and up to date. If you love listening to WCPT 820, then you'll love getting your news from heartlandsignal.com. Visit us there today.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit beefy, or even with type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Affordable term life insurance is out there. Call Term Provider and speak with Big Lou at 800-481-1458. 800-481-1458 or visit biglou.com. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too.
If you're looking to purchase a new home, you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Dahlia, 27, nurse, wanted to purchase a home. Dahlia talked with an online lender who did not answer her questions, so she called her mom for advice. Dahlia's mom recommended she contact the only lender she trusted to help her daughter finance her first home, Team Hochberg. We answered Dahlia's questions, held her hand throughout the process, and secured the mortgage on her first home. Let's review. Dahlia consulted with an online lender who didn't answer her questions. Then, based upon her mom's recommendation, called Team Hochberg, and we helped Dahlia secure the mortgage on her new home. Team Hochberg's helped thousands of radio listeners' kids secure mortgages on their new home purchases, like we helped Dahlia, but we can't help if you don't call 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com. That number again is 855-563-2843 or visit 56david.com. Homeside Financial, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 1124061.
Is finding seasonal help on your wish list? You need Indeed, the all-in-one platform for interviewing, screening, and hiring high-quality people. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
I'm Jessica Ettinger, CNBC. Omicron is found in the U.S. and stocks started December trading today with a dive. The Dow gave up a 500-point rally. It swung nearly 1,000 points in the trading session. It was down 461 points, 1.3%. It's just above 34,000. The S&P 500 index was down 53 points, 1%. The NASDAQ was down 283 points, almost 2%. 52-week lows for some big names like Disney, AT&T, Gap, and Carnival. Shares of travel companies plunged today, hotels, cruise lines, and airlines. And shares of vaccine maker Moderna tanked at least 10%, perhaps because the person in which the Omicron variant was detected, a traveler who had gone to South Africa and returned to California, this person had been fully vaccinated with the Moderna vaccine. Jessica Ettinger, CNBC.
Hear the CNBC business updates each weekday at 9:30, 12:30, and 4:30. Now, your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic report.
South DuSable Lakeshore Drive, bumper to bumper, North Avenue down to Chicago Avenue. Northbound on the brakes from Balbo to Monroe. In Waukegan, northbound Lewis Avenue closed from Glenflora to Harding Avenue. That's with an injury accident. In Elgin, tread carefully through the intersection of National Street and Grove Avenue as the traffic signals are flashing red. Eden's Inn from Lake Hook Road 29, bumper to bumper Devon down to the Kennedy Merge. Kennedy outbound, 19 to the Split 15 and the Express 39 to O'Hare. Inbound from the airport 4425 of that in from the junction. Ike outbound heavy out to First Avenue, from the Circle to 390 and 58. Now the Stevenson outbound, stopping and going to Central, from DuSable Lakeshore Drive on out to 355 and 53. The Ryan out to 95th at 28, braking at 47th. That's traffic. I'm Mary DeBadges.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT Willow Springs is powered by ComEd. Lower your energy bills and reduce your carbon footprint with the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program.
Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist Patti Vasquez.
Hold on a second, we're on here to Terry Cosgrove joins me in studio. I've got to get to the microphones. You're telling me a great story. We'll talk more about this off. Someday I'll have a great show called Off the Air. Wait a minute. I did that for 2 years. Joining me in studio is Terry Cosgrove. Cosgrove? Because my name is Vasquez, right?
I know, and I always say it wrong.
No, I'm not telling you that because...
I know, but it's just...
But that's why I'm asking you. Yeah. Cosgrove? How do you say
Cosgrove. But I did have a college roommate that called me Cosgrove, and everyone cracked up over it.
It's like a hard C.
You know, people call me a lot, Patty, so anything you want to call me...
is bonus round?
Yeah, I mean, if it has a swear word in it, okay, I don't care.
It happens from Hey, believe me, there's people out there with swear words around my name. Hey, that means we're doing something right because we're in the mix, right? We're showing up, and that doesn't...
There could be an adjective, you never know.
We have, again, Terry Cosgrove is the CEO of Personal PAC, a nonpartisan political action committee dedicated to electing pro-choice candidates to state and local offices in Illinois. And we're having a conversation about the Supreme Court hearing the Mississippi 15-week ban on abortions, meaning after 15 weeks, a woman, a girl, a child cannot have access to an abortion, to a safe and legal abortion in the state of Mississippi. And that triggers a lot of other states, because once they say that Mississippi can do this, then there are dozens of states that can do this afterwards. Is that right?
Well, and the other thing is there's 22 states that have what we had in Illinois. We were one of 4 states in 2017 that had a trigger law that said that the day Roe v. Wade is overturned or modified. Yes. I mean, this is the key here, which is why another case is going to end up in front of the court, because or modified means, because once they kick the viability standard off the block, which is what they're going to do with Mississippi, 22 states have trigger laws that say when Roe v. Wade is overturned or modified, then abortion automatically becomes illegal in those states.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to be looking at here. And in Illinois, we repealed our trigger law.
HB 40.
With HB 40. Thank you very much,
yes,
Patty. You were there for it.
I was in the press box, yeah.
I know.
It was very exciting. I was at a lot of the committee hearings. It was, and a lot of these issues, there are personal stories. Kelly Cassidy, I thought, did a great job of talking about her experiences. There are other legislators, and obviously you have people that give their testimony, and that it just falls on, deaf ears on the other side of the aisle. Did you have a single, was there, because there used to be Republicans who did support.
In 1990, in the 90s, we had 14 pro-choice Republicans in the House, and most of them were pro-LGBTQ as well, and 7 in the Senate. Now, not a single Republican voted for HB 40. Not a single Republican voted for the Reproductive Health Act, and not a single Republican voted to repeal P&A. Not a single one.
And that's the thing, is it because the Republican Party has become single issue candidates, whether it's guns or abortion.
Yeah, but single issue is to overthrow our democracy. I mean,
that's a good point.
What happened today in the Supreme Court with Roe, and that this is a canary in the coal mine. Our democracy is on the line. Voting rights. I mean, all of this mindset. They are not single. I mean. Yes, they are. They're single. They're single issue in terms of Roe, but they're also single issue in terms of destroying our democracy, allowing people to carry automatic assault weapons into a high school, for example, and anti-LGBTQ and a whole range of issues not in favor of equal pay. I mean, I could go on for the next 23 minutes that we have left about everything they are. So, but I will say that generally, and this was a litmus test that people in Springfield use, because a Republican or Democrat who's pro-choice likely has progressive views on other issues. For example, marriage equality had Republican sponsors when that happened. That would never happen today. And environmental laws, and today is World AIDS Day, and I did another interview earlier today, and I talked about Rosemary Mulligan, who is a pro-choice Republican from Park Ridge. She was vice chair of the Human Services Appropriation Committee, and her vote, working with Sarah Feigenholz, doubled the AIDS budget. A Republican did that. You would never in a million years in today's world find a Republican who would stand up and take a position that would address the AIDS issue. It just wouldn't happen, Yeah.
I know that our friend Joe from Chicago has been on hold for a bit, and I appreciate your patience. What are your thoughts today, Joe?
Well, I just have 2 points, and that even though the abortion issue is extremely important, it's vital that the Democrats make it known that the anti-abortion movement is actually an anti-birth control movement. Mm-hmm. And that voters are pretty split on the abortion issue, but generally support birth control. And every Republican president, starting with Reagan, their first move has been to defund any family planning programs that we support worldwide as soon as they're in office. It's the first move. And that we really need to make it a politically known issue that anti-abortion means anti-birth control. Anybody abortion movement is anti-birth control. Also, these judges, they come from this farming network of a sickle allegiance between the Catholic Church and the Koch brother billionaires that look for students in college and law school that have some academic ability, but not a lot, but they look for their religious and conservative bents. And they take these people and they give them recommendations to put them in law schools and judge clerkships that they're probably not highly qualified to have, just to get them in position to put on the federal bench when they can, in order to, dislodge our whole democracy, as we're seeing now.
Yeah.
And that by the time they get there, their entire careers are owed to these religious and billionaire groups because they don't have the same ability that the Democratic, judges have to get to those positions. They're there because of their political and religious bent, not their intelligence.
Right, the Federalist Society, the Heritage Foundation, as you mentioned, the Koch brothers. There are a lot of powerful groups and with a ton of money, and I don't know how do we catch up?
And it's not just money. They put these people in academic positions to find students.
Oh, no, I agree completely. Hey, my brother-in-law, and I don't think I've ever told you this, Terry. Well, I don't know if I should tell you on the air, if I should tell anybody. My brother-in-law is in the Federalist Society, and he was the former legal chief for VP Pence, and Christmas is a really harrowing. He's best friends with Clarence Thomas. His niece is named after her. Anyway, see, I already told you too much.
Right.
It's a very stressful time for me at the holiday.
I won't leave the studio. Don't worry. But Joe, thank you for bringing up the birth control issue, because I've talked about that once or twice in the last hour, but it's so true that people don't understand that they're gunning for birth control, and they consider most forms of birth control, the IUD and most configurations of pill, to be abortifacients and actually taking a human life. So, and I hope that the young people that are listening take that very seriously, because I know a lot of people my age aren't concerned about birth control, although my birth control is 100% effective, but that's for
is mine.
That's for another.
I'm past my birthing years, or whatever they call it. I am.
Yeah,
I know.
I bet. I won't.
You won't think I'm lying. You're like, no woman says she's over 50 without. Just saying. Thank you so much, Brian. It's great issues that you're bringing up, and I appreciate your contribution to the conversation. I've got to move on to another caller. Deborah, how are you doing? Thank you, first of all, for
belated Thanksgiving.
Oh, thank you
for accepting the call and your guest. Thank you for what you're doing. Bless you, because it's so important to us, the world, to God. My cry is baby girl and old girl. Our lives matter too. In fact, the gentleman just spoke. He brought up, and I told the screener that about the pills and all. So you've covered that. The other thing that's so critically important, because I witnessed this less than 2 months ago over the FCC airways, I shared watching a young lady pregnant being forced into an ambulance against her will. This is right here at Fort Hope Manor 2, where a 1-year-old baby was assassinated outside of the window also. Now, the security guard that saw it also, he's dead now. So there's going to be a lot of girls that's going to wind up like her, who knows, sex trafficking or just murdered, period.
Deborah, I know how much you're invested in your community, your neighbors, and all the lives that are important to you. So I always appreciate your contribution to our
community. The saddest thing, it's criminal that there have been legislators that knew this and did nothing until now. That there's a Candace McCollum that's doing something with Soledad O'Brien, and Visible Ones. This could have been done and taken care of, but then as long as the Republicans see that the Democrats don't care, why should they?
Right.
Thanks for accepting my call.
Of course. Have a great rest of your day. Be well, Deborah. Let's take one more call before the break, and then we're going to talk about the 22 election campaign and what we need to be paying attention to locally and nationally. Brian's calling from Joliet. Hey, Brian, thanks for joining us. What's on your mind?
I'm pro-choice, and I have many things on my mind. Not enough time, unfortunately, so I'll go as fast as I can. Okay. First of all, not just the Catholic hierarchy on abortion, especially in the U.S., They are completely wrong. I'm pro-choice on the abortion issue, but the Catholic hierarchy, I don't know what Francis's position is, Pope Francis's particularly, but in the U.S. for sure, and not only on the abortion issue, a lot of it has to do with Trump and giving them more money as if they needed it, but we also have to speak of the hierarchy of the Southern Baptist Convention and the evangelical hierarchy. They think the exact same way on the abortion issue, and Trump said, I tried to hide it, months before the election between him and Hillary, interview, CNN, question, what's your position on health care? Trump, answer, I have a health care plan all women will love. Next question, no follow-up. Next question, on abortion. Well, I believe, Trump's exact words, I believe all women under any circumstances who has an abortion must go to jail. They no follow-up. Even in it, and they get $1 million for doing this. These so-called journalists, an intelligent senior in high school would get on TV and ask follow-up intelligent questions for free.
Brian, I'm a little bit worried about your blood pressure. Because you and I are, because I've gone through that rage too about that exact same line of thought of, are we talking about imprisoning women? Are we talking about capital punishment? Are we talking all those things? And you're right. I remember when he was asked that, and previous to running for president, if you remember, he was pro-choice. Trump was pro-choice, but that's what we were talking about with Republicans being single-issue voters. You have to be anti-abortion in order to be a Republican. There is no middle ground anymore.
Well, if I might finish with a few more points, very important. I suggest a book, Philosophy and Women, early 1980s. It gives Thomas Aquinas' views on women. They made him a saint, and in the Catholic Church, he's their main philosopher. And it's like in the old Soviet Union, if Marx said it has to be true, of course that's false. And in the Catholic Church, if Aquinas said it, well, then it's got to be true, of course that's false. Then he's supposed to be a philosopher. In Catholicism, if you think that way, then that's the end of philosophy. But I want to say Tom Hartman cited El Salvador, no abortion at all. A woman goes to jail. Poland, according to Hartman, in the same direction. Right. And also want to say that I especially think of women who are going to die without abortion, victims of rape and incest. And I also think, especially since we haven't nearly ended child poverty, if abortion becomes completely illegal, then that will mean in the United States of America, you're going to have millions and millions of actual living babies being allowed to starve to death within a year.
Yeah. I mean, these are all the things that we're talking about. Thank you so much for calling, Brian. I've got to run to the break and do a read before we do that, because this is Joan Esposito Show, live, local, and progressive. I'm Patti Vasquez filling in, and I want to remind you that Hawk Volkswagen of Joliet has been the #1 volume Volkswagen dealer in Illinois for the past 5 years. If you haven't experienced Hawk Volkswagen for yourself, now is a great time. Choose from a huge selection of new Volkswagen models like Jetta, Passat, Tiguan, Atlas, and Atlas Cross Sport. Over 30 of each in stock, all the hard to find trim levels and colors, all ready for you all ready for you. Immediate delivery, outstanding service, selection, and a first-class experience. That's why they're #1 in Illinois. Hawk Volkswagen on Jefferson Street in Joliet, online at hawkvw.com. That's hawkvw.com. Claim based on 2016 through 2020 retail sales. We'll return with Terry Cosgrove in a moment to talk about our call to action for the election in 2022. Now is the time to start working. Yesterday was the time to start working. 20 years ago was, but hey, today's today. More after this on WCPT 820.
The family meeting. Why can't someone like you or like Rich run for office? Why is it that the least of us, the most distasteful of us, like the guy that you talked about, the clown running for governor of Illinois, just a straight up clown at a fundraiser, campaigning in a speech, showing his behind. I mean, so he represents the worst of us, but he can ascend to or aspire to a political office. Why can't you run?
Sundays at 4. The family meeting is brought to you by Property Tax Solutions. If they can't lower your property taxes, you don't pay.
O'Reilly.
This is Claudia's O'Reilly Auto Parts story.
I had just moved to a new city and barely even knew where the grocery store was yet. When my car wouldn't start one morning, I didn't know who to ask about local shops. But I remembered a name from back home, O'Reilly Auto Parts. I called and they pointed me to a great mechanic just down the street. Now I feel a little more at home.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Dell Technologies' biggest business sale of the year has arrived. Step up your vision with Top Tech up to 50% off during their Cyber Monday event. Dell Technologies recommends Windows 11 Pro for business. Plus, get incredible savings on Windows 11 PCs, along with servers, monitors, and docks, all with free shipping. There's also special financing with Dell Business Credit. Get started by contacting your Dell Technologies advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit beefy, or even with type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Affordable term life insurance is out there. Call Term Provider and speak with Big Lou at 800-481-1458. 800-481-1458 or visit biglou.com. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I... Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist, Patti Vasquez.
Sorry, I pushed the wrong button there for a moment. We started the intro all over again. It's the Joan Esposito Show, live, local, and progressive. Joining me in studio is Terry Cosgrove. Are your headphones not working now?
Yeah, they are.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah,
I wasn't speaking loudly enough. So we have spent a great time talking about what has been going on in the Supreme Court, hearing the Mississippi case this morning, banning abortions after 15 weeks. This will affect dozens of states. You have worked tirelessly for decades to make sure that Illinois is a bastion of safety, really, for a lot of women. For all over the country, people can come here, but they shouldn't have to. Right. And it doesn't mean that work is done in Illinois either. This shows that everything is important. So tell us what we need to be aware of right now for going into 22.
To that point, we can't take anything for granted. I will remind people that Cecile Richards' mother, Ann Richards, was the governor of Texas not that long ago, that Lyndon Baines Johnson, you brought up LBJ,
yeah.
was from Texas. Anything can happen. Elections have consequences. It is absolutely imperative, more than ever before, that we take the 2022 election seriously. And here's what we have to do. We have to re-elect Governor Pritzker.
Yes.
He is a champion not just on reproductive rights, but on so many other issues, and standing up to the right-wingers.
Do you want your sheet back? I took your sheet from
know
here.
it.
I got this all down.
Yeah, that re-elect Governor Pritzker, he's done an amazing job on protecting us from COVID and acting responsibly in so many ways. And then we have two Illinois Supreme Court races. And the right-wingers are gunning to take over the Illinois Supreme Court. They only need one more justice to do it, and they will be as right-wing as the U.S. Supreme Court. So what does that mean? That means that the right-wingers will be in court trying to overturn HB 40, try to overturn the RHA, try to overturn parental notice repeal. That means they'll be in court trying to undo all the progress we've made on the environment, on labor rights, on everything that this radio station stands for, and I'm guessing 90% of your listeners care about. So it is absolutely imperative that we do everything we can to keep Illinois. This is about keeping us, now that we've made progress on so many issues that we care about, LGBTQ issues, labor, reproductive rights, the environment. I mean, I can go on and on about it. Now we have to do the hard work of making sure that we reelect these people. Because if we don't, if we don't take this election seriously, and the Illinois Supreme Court is handed over to right-wing Republicans, and a right-wing Republican defeats JB for governor, and we lose members of the General Assembly, and we lose that majority, they have 22 anti-abortion bills sitting in Springfield right now, and all they're doing is waiting, just like the Mississippi legislature was waiting for the court. When they have it, we have the right court. Everything we've worked for is gone. And so everyone needs to step up. They need to register to vote. They need to talk to everyone they know. They need to volunteer in campaigns and do whatever you can to make sure that we reelect all these pro-choice heroes in Illinois and defeat against a bunch of right-wing Republicans. I mean, I'm planning on going after at least a half a dozen House members and several senators who are anti-choice in this next election. So not only is our work not done, we need to make more progress here in Illinois because we're not done and we can't rest.
Because that's how we ended up here today, is because Roe v. Wade passes and everyone in every state elects people who are anti-choice.
Well, and here's what the problem has been, Patty, is that we thought that the court was in trouble with the Bushes, and then Bill Clinton gets elected and appoints RBG to the Supreme Court. And everyone's, oh, we're fine. And we go to sleep. The right-wingers never give up. They have not given up for 50 years. And it bothers me, people saying, well, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm burnt out. That's fine, except the other side isn't exhausted, tired, and burnt out. So if we're going to act that way, we're going to lose. So none of this should be a surprise. And then we get, after Clinton, we get what we got.
Yes.
And then we get Barack Obama, and the savior has come and has saved us now from everything.
Only
to get Donald Trump, and here we are today. So it's really imperative. I know it's a long haul for people to say. People ask me all the time, when can we stop working? And the answer is never. Never. I mean,
there's always going to be people who are radicalized.
Democracy is not written in the stone somewhere. We have to protect it every step of the way. We need to support organizations that are working to protect our democracy. We need to protect reproductive rights for the future. We need to protect everything we believe in because it's not automatic. Things don't happen just because they happened 10 years ago. They're going to happen now. We have to work every single day. So re-elect the Illinois General Assembly, re-elect the governor, re-elect all of our constitutional offices, and get involved with one of these Supreme Court races if you're in one of these two districts, which is basically the south suburbs and the north suburbs. Okay. And then, of course, there's the congressional candidates because Illinois' congressional delegation...
They redrew the lines, too.
Yeah, could decide whether Kevin McCarthy's the next speaker or Nancy Pelosi is. So we have a lot of work to do.
Pay attention.
I encourage everyone to take a deep breath and get out there and let's win in 2022.
That's right. Ann is on hold. Ann, I'm going to ask you to stay through to the next show because Terry Cosgrove, the Joan Esposito show, she'll be back tomorrow. And Terry, thank you so much for hanging out in studio with me.
It was wonderful. Thanks for having me.
I would never make you come in studio and not make it worth not just your while, but everyone learns more because you have such a wealth of experience and knowledge, and we are, and I know that you get thanked a lot. I hope that one of the things that I talk to providers. I have a son who's disabled, and I talk to a lot of his providers, and they get thanked a lot. And I can see in their eyes that they just kind of nod. I hope that you let it land once in a while, that the not just the earnestness, but the debt of gratitude that so many of us feel. I might be beyond, but of course, it's so important, and we owe you just so much. So thank you, Terry.
And allow me to give it back because you have been an incredible supporter of Personal PAC, and so many of your listeners have, and we could not do the work that we do. We could not have won the victories that we have won over the last 30 years without the support. I don't do it alone.
I know.
We don't do it alone. It's all of our volunteers, people who can go to personalpac.org and make a donation. We win because we go toe-to-toe with the right wing. I mean, I never back down with them, and having the resources to do that, to do the hundreds of thousands of pieces of mail that we do, to do the voter ID phone calls, the social media, taking them on at every corner is how we win. So I appreciate all of the support of your listeners and you.
We will do more. I'm going to keep showing up. I'm not tired yet. I ain't tired. I'm not going to get tired.
I'm not either.
All right, let's do this. Thank you, Terry. Take care. Personalpac.org. That's personalpac.org. The Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez show comes up in just a moment. Thank you so much, Joan. I hope that you are well, and Joan Esposito will be back tomorrow.
It's official. The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath is on WC.